Hello, everybody. Welcome to our final Outlast Season 4 Roundtable. My name is Peter Zubiago, and I'm here today talking with Liz, Nikki, Will, Abby, our runner-up Joseph, and our winner, Francesca. We've got a lot to cover, as all 6 of these players have played a heck of a game. So we're going to jump right in here. And I'm going to start first by going around the group and asking you all to share a little bit about your previous LRG experience and why you came to Outlast in particular. So Liz, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I had never played an LRG before. I'd played some online games during the pandemic as what is this like? And then run my own Survivor games like in the backyard. So when I went to a Survivor premiere party, Allison actually came up with business cards to tell what live reality games are. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. So Outlast came to me because I thought it was the only one. I didn't know that there was like a whole world of it. But it ended up being perfect. So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. And Nikki?
Hi. So I'm happy to be here, first of all. But my LRG experience, I have definitely played some games, played some Survivor, Big Brother, and some, other ones in between. But my claim to fame in the LRG community is definitely hosting my own game called Survive. And it started at the same time that Outlast did. So throughout the years, I have followed Outlast and, always wanted to play. And I really wanted another chance to kind of redeem myself because in the previous Survivor games I've played, I've been an earlier target or an early boot. Because, as Francesca says, I am scary. So I was excited to come here and try not to be scary.
Amazing. Will?
Yeah, I also had very little LRG or ORG experience, or however you say it. I did like Roblox Survivor in the pandemic, which like probably would have done in org if I had been aware that existed. I did City Quest, which is like an Amazing Race style game in New York, but no strategy really involved. And I had done a Zoom traders fundraiser for Can You Survive, which was my only game experience. Is worth noting because it's the reason I recognized who Brandon was, and Brandon recognized me when we got to the game. Obviously, like a very tangential connection, but it was something, and I didn't expect to have a connection going in. But yeah, otherwise it was my first thing, and it appealed to me just because of always been into camping, and like the immersion of it was really what drew me to the game. So rather than a one-day game, I loved the idea of like really jumping into the full experience.
Amazing. Thank you. Abby?
Yeah, so I've always been a fan of the show. And I started playing Orgs when I was like 17 years old and played all the way till I was like 27. So literally played Orgs for like 10 years and then just retired because it was getting too much for me. Then I started playing last year LRG games. I played just one-day games, and then someone reached out to me from Outlast to apply. I didn't even think to apply to a long-day game. I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to do the outdoors and all these other things. And but I was like, let me try. So I signed up and I got cast. And yeah, I just wanted to, I wanted to see if I could do it. To be honest, I didn't even realize how intensive it was going to be. Like, I didn't know that we were not going to be able to have like extra clothes, like hair products. Like, I didn't know we were sleeping outside until like a few days before the game. So that was like pretty surprising to me because it was never told to me. So I was really, really scared going into the game. But I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to just deal with the elements as I can and do my best. And honestly, I loved it.
Great. Love to hear it. And Joseph?
So kind of similar to RB, I started with orgs, and it was like during COVID, just as a way to like, I was like, how am I supposed to spend my time? And I just happened to like run into orgs, and I had all this spare time to like completely dedicate to this very important cause. And then someone was randomly did a Sydney Survivor And I applied for that, and I was on the first season for that, and that was really fun. And kind of like sparked the interest of like LRGs, and like I graduated to LRGs after that. And I've done a couple here and there, but similar to Nikki, I host my own as well. Survivor Cayman Islands here in the tropical sunny Cayman Islands. We just did our second season about a month ago. Without getting too much away, you'll probably recognize someone, but I'm not going to say anything else. Why I didn't choose Outlast. I guess Outlast chose me. I think last year I did a bit of a scattergun approach of like, I just had an urge, an itch to scratch of like playing another. So I just played a lot of them, and I'm like, I'm happy to whoever takes me. But I think one of the reasons why I found out about Outlast is because it has such a great community of people and alumni, especially a couple of like, it seems except for maybe one season, there's been a token Australian every season so far, apart from maybe like season 1. So I was happy to keep that tradition going, and I hope it still continues.
Yes, who can say if it will, but it's certainly an interesting thing that we have only played minus the debut season. And Francesca, how about you?
Yeah, actually, I think Liz said it for me, so I don't need to explain it myself, but I had the exact same story, which is I was at so I've never played an LRG before. I've hosted games before, actually like 2-day games without an overnight stay, and I thought I was the only one in the world, and that was quickly disproven. But yeah, I handed a flyer by Allison saying that I should apply. I just happened to have won. This is a really fun fact, but I just happened to have like won one of the mini challenge brackets that Underground Games puts on, where they it was like I think it's like tipsy turvy or whatever, like the table with the immunity thing that the blocks that falls. So I won that bracket, and that's when Allison came running after me. I was like, "You should apply," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm so honored." And I wasn't gonna do it, but then I've said it multiple times in the show. Like my husband, my then fiance, now husband, convinced me to do it. So I was like, why not? It's so close to here. Yeah, that's the story.
Amazing. It's interesting. We have quite the community of hosts of games, and they may run the gamut here from friends in the backyard to something a little bigger in production value like Survive and Survivor Cayman Islands. But it's interesting that this group has a lot of experience behind the scenes with games. But anyway, let's jump right in and talk about this wonderful game that you all participated in. I think that this is one of the most dynamic end games that I've ever seen in any season of Survivor or an LRG ever. And so I'm sure we have plenty to talk about just within these last 6 rounds, but I'm also curious to hear about your paths to the final 6 before that. Liz, we'll start with you. You're someone that came into the game with Joseph and were under the gun pretty early, just because you kept going to a lot of tribals, but then quickly found yourself in a position of safety and were safe after those first 2. I guess I'm curious, like how you saw, your game develop through the pre-merge, having had an experience at the beginning that was, I imagine, rather stressful, and then being able to like let some relationships marinate a little bit.
Yeah. I feel like losing a lot at the beginning, like right at the beginning, like really set a very early tone that kind of carried through for me. I feel like that really, like a lot of people, I think when you don't go to tribal early on, your game's a little bit more freer. Whereas I felt like I had a path already, like at merge, like a story had already started to unfold, whereas some people's story was just kind of starting. I think like going into merge or like going into swaps with your numbers dwindling, it's kind of helpful because you're not an obvious threat. Like people aren't worried about taking out the blues, which really gave me time to just form relationships. So I think that's like a huge positive. But then I think on the negative side, it also means you just like don't come across as someone who has numbers behind you. Like I think you come in from a place of like, she doesn't have that much power behind her. So like pros and cons for sure that kind of carried throughout the game.
Sure. And who were some relationships early on that you latched on to once you swapped for the very first time into the Brains Bronze groups?
Yeah, so remembering who's on which tribe is going to be crazy. But in terms of like the swap times in general, I feel like I'd say like Will, you and I don't think it's like shown that much in the show. But pretty early on, as soon as we were swapped together, I feel like our conversation started going. And then Nikki, you as well. I feel like pretty early on, like even if it wasn't necessarily super strategic right off the bat of like relying on each other, I felt like there was a good sense of like, okay, we have each other's back at least. And then I was like full on committed to the like Joseph, Nikki, Brandon, and I think Amy post like blow up tribal, that I was like, there's security here. I'm good with security. So I think those were the people I was gravitating towards.
Sure, yeah. And so those were the people you were gravitating towards. In that early merge section, like were those the people that you wanted to be in the end game with? Or did you see maybe cutting a few of them earlier than that?
Yeah. I feel like in reflecting on my game, I feel like so much of my experience was like, I don't want to miss out on anything. Like I want to make it to merge. I want to make it towards like this challenge that I'm really excited about. So for me, like that group was okay, like it's safe. Like I wanted stability. And so I was like, yeah, I won't cut anyone. I'm not going to like go out of my way to mess with something that feels stable. So I totally would have stuck with that group.
Sure. Cool. And then you're someone that we see in the episodes constantly bring up Francesca as a threat to your game. It actually happens kind of as early as like the very first round. You and Joseph have a conversation where you're like, Francesca's talking to everyone, even though she's not on your tribe. I'm curious, like at what point you had, it might be the very beginning, but I'm curious at what point you had clocked that, and why you specifically had thought that she was so threatening for you in the game.
I would hazard a bet that if you had asked everyone after like the one world day of like swapping, like talking to everyone would have named Francesca as the social threat. I think I would be correct on that. Like Francesca, you were like leading all the questions in each group that we had, very personable questions, very like get to know you deeply type questions. And I was like, oh, that is someone who's going to make deep connections, not just like quick little relationships. So I feel like I clocked that very early. And then it was really stressing me out that I at that point, I didn't feel like early merge. I didn't feel like anyone else cared that was a big threat. And I did. I was like super, and she was so good at puzzles. I'm like, that, like, why wouldn't we take that out? So I think every single vote of merge, at some point, I told someone we could do Francesca, which is a credit to your game because I really thought you should go every round. So
that's really funny. Did you feel like anyone in particular was like a block in gaining traction on Francesca's name? Like, what were the barriers there?
I feel like everyone agreed. I don't think people like disagreed. But I felt like it was always like, we could do that next. Or like, we can't, like, we're just a few numbers off. Like it never, like a Francesca vote never seemed like that far off the table. I kind of felt like it was always like a second option away, but there was one thing bigger. And then I think Avi's threat level was like skyrocketing higher and higher, that like really stole the show a little bit too. So there was things kind of stealing attention from that as like the big possible vote.
Yeah, definitely. One of the big moments of the game. One of the big moments of the game is right after Ashley is eliminated, and a crazy vote in and of its own right that involves Avi's threat level spiking with the second idol play, and Nikki almost going home. Brandon takes a vote, and the episode kind of makes it seem like this decision kind of hinges on you and this conversation that you have with Will about choosing to take out Brandon. And you said earlier that like Brandon was someone that you had connected with and wanted to go deep in the game with. But I'm curious, what happened around like the mid-merge that made it so that it was time. You felt it was time to cut Brandon out of the game, even after he brought you to Cooler's Corner and gave you some food.
No, that was brutal. So I felt connected to Brandon. I felt like on a one-on-one relationship, like strategic conversation, we weren't like the closest, most trusted people out there. But I felt like we were connected through this group that, like, in my mind was like a strong group. But at the same time, I was also really viewing it as like, that's Nikki's number one. And for me, Nikki was also like super rising on like my trust list. So if someone had to go from that group, I felt like Nikki would then have to gravitate towards me even more. So if I was gonna lose someone from that group, it was gonna be Brandon, who I was probably least connected to in terms of that, I think 5, whatever group that was. And it would bring Nikki closer to me and keep Will in some sort of working relationship. I think there was a conversation that I remember of being like, okay, if we vote vote Brandon here, we need to do Francesca. And Will claimed he would do that. Whether that's true or not.
Will, was that true?
Yeah, it's interesting watching that back. I think the reason I took so long to think about it, which was kind of came back to bite me in a way, because later Liz and Nikki are having conversations and Liz is like, he said it would be hard for him.
Yeah.
I think I did it was true when I said it, because I was thinking like, I think I would rather go to the end with Liz than Francesca at that moment, because our games were more different primarily. So it was true to the extent that like, if that, like in the right scenario, I would be willing to cut Francesca and go with Liz.
Cool. Great. And then let's talk through the round you go at the final 6. This comes right after Amy is evacuated from the game. And this is, when you finally put down Francesca's name and you're, thinking that that's going to happen. What were the conversations that you were having that made you confident that like, you're finally going to land the shot there?
Honestly, in my mind, like my life is good mind, to me, like, I guess this is always the case with anybody, but I was like, this just seems like such the clear answer. Like, I feel like I really sometimes think in black and white of like, there's a group that trusts each other. Like, why not just take out numbers that aren't in that group? And I wasn't really thinking beyond that. I also feel like the timing of it all, in my mind right now, at least, it was such a blur from Amy leaving the game into immediate challenge. And that like changed the game so much in my eyes. Amy leaving the game was like major to my game, because I felt really good with Amy.
Sure.
And I think that affected that vote a lot. I am really curious how that vote would have gone if Amy was still in.
So yeah, I guess I'm curious, the final 7 vote, assuming that Amy hadn't gone, what did you want to happen?
I think I probably would have wanted Francesca again. Sorry, girl. It's like all credit to you. But I think I think Amy was the other name out there for that round. I think Will and Francesca had said that they would have wanted Amy. So it could have been the same exact. I'm really curious what other people think, but
sure. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get to that as it happens. So ultimately at this final 6, how surprised were you when on the revote Nikki voted for you and sent you out of the game?
I was like, I think I was surprised by the tie for sure. Once it tied though, I was like, well, it didn't just tie by happenstance.
Sure.
So something's going on here. It's probably me. Otherwise, like, it would have just been Francesca. I think the biggest like surprise factor is figuring out how that helped Nikki's game. And like I don't know, like I think going to the end with Nikki or Joseph, who were the 2 people I probably would have said, loyalty, I probably will lose to these people, but let's go. I just couldn't wrap my head around how that helped Nikki's game. So I think that was the biggest like shock factor to me.
Sure. And Nikki, we'll certainly talk about that as we move forward. But wrapping up here on Liz, I want to hear more about your relationship with Joseph. And in the pre-merge, you obviously were working very closely together. We don't see you guys talk a lot throughout the merge, but I'm curious, how your relationship developed from those early days through the late game.
Yeah, I feel like we went through a lot at the beginning. So like obviously there was a lot of trust there. I was very concerned about like, I feel like Joseph was like perception wise was so viewed as like he's a strategic great player that I know that makes him more of a threat. But in my mind, I was also like, well, they could, if they're worried about a duo, they could easily pick me off. And he might have better strategic connections to everybody. So I was really worried about like a duo hurting my game. Obviously, I feel like every clip of me is being like, no, I'd vote Joseph out, even if it wasn't true. Like, I feel like I was just saying that to everybody and anyone. And then I do think there was a point in the game where it's not a level of trust, but it frustrated me a little bit sometimes that like Joseph was getting all this like credit, probably rightfully so, of like all these like bigger moves are being viewed as like much more of a power player. And like, I think I was just like, maybe I need to I'm just a shadow and wanting to feel like I need to distance myself a little bit to not be like just a shadow of someone else.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think maybe part of that, I'm curious like how much you knew about the like quote unquote hosts alliance, and as much as that may have been a thing. You talked about knowing that Nikki and Brandon were particularly close, but I'm curious if you knew if like Joseph was like kind of in that mix as well.
Nikki and Brandon, I thought were just close because you could tell that they were friends. Like I think you can like read between, like you can tell when people are just like naturally like we vibe. And then I think it was the round where Brandon went. Actually, Amy told me pretty early on that there was a host alliance, and I kind of was like, okay, like we're good, so it's fine. And then I thought about it. I think she brought it up again when we voted Brandon out. And she was like, no, this is like a big deal. I don't know. It didn't really bother me that much in the moment. I was like, I think I've weaseled in enough.
Sure. Very fair. Anything else you want to say before we move on to Nikki for this portion of the conversation?
No, I just had a great time. And like so much learning curve. Like it was really cool to get feel like I got a full experience of the game, making it into merge and like a little bit into merge. Just of like things I now view differently. So very, very cool first experience.
Awesome. Great. Love to hear it. So Nikki, we'll move on now to you in your game. I do want to mostly talk about the merge, but we haven't gotten a lot of Loma people yet in these roundtables. So I'm curious to hear what your initial perspective of the original Loma tribe was.
Well, anything pre-merge when it comes to my game, super boring because I just didn't lose a challenge until the end. So Loma, it was fun. We kept finding little animals and critters, and we had a great camp. My interpretation of how things would have gone, I don't know if it's true or not, like I thought I had things lined up definitely with Ryan and Brooke, and we were going to pull in Will. So it's like we don't know if that would have actually worked or not. And yeah, so we don't know. Yeah.
Okay. All good. And then, I think on the swap tribe is where you really start gaining traction. You start connecting with Brandon, and you can build a little bit more of a group. And as you say, yes, you don't go to many tribal councils and you don't get to do a lot. But it does seem like you start to like really accumulate power, and you do emerge at the start of the merge as like one of the two people with Brandon that's like really calling the shots, at least from what we see in the episodes. And I'm curious, like what your approach in doing that was, whether that was like people first or like strategy minded first. Like how did you basically find yourself in that position?
Yeah, so it had to be a little bit of people first, but we had so much time because we just kept winning. So that was really on our side, and also really on my side because, I do get clocked early in games for, trying too hard or like being such a big presence, whatever. So it gave me a sense of relief to just calm down and just focus on my relationships. But really, when Joseph, Brandon, and I got together and it was like this host alliance was proposed, I was all in. I was like, yes, this sounds so good. We can build off of this. We can use our connections that we have. Joseph, you can use your connection with Liz, and Brandon can pull in Amy. And then when we get with Ryan, I could pull in Ryan. Like it was like this whole, we were building this castle, and I reference that in my confessionals. It's not really shown, but we're building this castle together, and I was so in and like fiercely loyal to that. So that was exciting for me, and that started pre-merge. And so then I felt like really set up, and just like Liz, like it felt really safe coming into merge. So I was like, yeah, anything can happen. We all know that changes.
Of course. I think one of maybe the big changes that happens right near the end of the pre-merge is Joseph stands up and plays the idol, negating the super idol that potentially may have been around as a factor in your game for the merge. I'm curious what your perspective on this was. When I talked with JoJo in the previous one, he talked through how angry he was, and which is something that we saw in the episodes. But I'm curious, like, what your reaction to it was, because obviously you get up and you play yours as well. But
yeah, so I play mine because I have no other choice. It's a stupid, silly little token without it. Totally. So I was, that moment was big for me because it tested my relationship, my game relationship with Joseph. I had to accept it and move on from it, and I did. But it put like a little like, I don't love that in my mind, but I was still so fiercely loyal to that group that I was willing to see past it. Because it also, when it comes to JoJo, Joseph and I kind of agreed we weren't really gonna like work with JoJo. So I agree with Joseph in that moment of like, this is probably never gonna work out in our favor, sure, but at least it's like something that keeps JoJo from voting us out. Mm-hmm. So like if we come to merge and JoJo meets up with, like Abby and wants to target us, he might not, because we have this like thing like, hey, we can work together. So that was how I was looking at it.
Sure. I'm also curious, this is changing topics a little bit. You come into this game as a host, and as a host, I imagine you have a kind of unique perspective on the game. And Joseph, this is something I maybe will ask you to follow up on once Nikki's finished here. How is the perspective that you get from hosting influence like how you see the game and play the game?
It's so interesting because I feel like you don't really understand how you're going to do. It's kind of like if you're watching Survivor and you're like the biggest fan ever. You don't really understand how you're going to do until you put yourself in that situation. I think I've grown more from playing and failing and learning from that than I have watching other people, because I've seen some amazing gameplay, but like that won't fit my strategy. So it doesn't really help me.
Sure. Joseph, just quickly on you, like, do you have a similar feeling on that?
Yeah, I do. I've learned a lot more from definitely playing, but I think I've had more fun hosting, because you get the whole experience without the stress. It's great.
Yeah.
But there's only so much. I guess it depends whether it also depends on like the number of people that are helping as well, I guess, because like if you're on a leaner team, the host does more than just host. They probably help with challenges and everything else as well. But if there's a big dedicated team and you're the host, you kind of like, that's what you do, and you don't really see stuff at camp happening or anything like that, so you're not as involved. I guess if anything, it kind of like gave me not a sixth sense, but like when you play this game, sometimes I feel like there's an invisible contestant that's the game itself.
Mhm.
And I think maybe I had like some good spidey senses from being a host or on production about where the game's going mechanically and how the game is actually set up. So I think I have like a game sense that kind of helped as well. But definitely have more fun hosting.
Great. Very fair. Yeah, I've long said that it's more fun to be on production than it is to play. Sorry. So back to you, Nikki. And I'd love to hear you talk about your working relationship with Brandon, and specifically to hear like how you two like worked so well together. I'm curious like what you brought, what he brought, and how that the two of you together became such like a good pair.
Brandon was so fun to work with because we would be able to just throw out different names and then be like, yeah, that's a good idea, without any sort of backlash. And we also had the same path on like who we wanted to work with. So it just felt very natural in the moment. And it was really fun. And it was quick conversations, get to the point. And then like we would go off and we would giggle and laugh together. Like, so it was all around one of my favorite like game strategy alliance members. So it was really fun to have that.
Great. That will move a little bit more towards this like mid-merge and end game portion. You cop a lot of votes when Ashley's out. Did that surprise you that the revote was so tight?
No. So here's a little bit of the backstory. So
yeah.
I'm going to back up a little bit. I was with Liz. So on Liz's comment of wanting Francesca out, I feel like every time she brought it up, I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. Because I got a word from Ryan really early on that Francesca said I was scary. So I was like, yeah, I'm in. And so it was Brandon, I think, that was like, oh, well, what about Abby? So Abby was always this other name. And then Will really, really caused a stir up at that vote where I think it was the one where I almost went home. And on the way up, I was obsessed with wanting to work with Will. I'll talk about this later when we talk about what wasn't shown. But I was like obsessed with wanting to work with Will. And so on the way up, I was like, Will, it's going to be Francesca. Like I wanted to bring him in on it. And he's like, oh, well, I heard that your name's out there. So then this whole like live tribal situation happened. And then I got the name switched to Abby. So I just feel like that was too much. That was way too much. My castle was crumbling. The round before, Joseph called out Brandon, and I'm like, oh God, like everything is just falling apart. It's crumbling. So no, I was not surprised at all when it was like, okay, it's either Nikki or Brandon going home. Duh, like it had to happen. I was thankful for my relationships, and that Brandon was perceived as the bigger threat, and he went home over me.
Yeah. I think you're right there. I do think that you had maybe some stronger relationships that definitely protected you on that round, which was definitely like a dangerous time to be a power player at that final 8, which I think typically is the case. And it's interesting how that continues to happen. But I'm curious, from your perspective in that round that Brandon ultimately goes home. Obviously, like you were a name that was tossed around a lot, and Brandon votes for you. I'm curious if you had an inkling at all of like trying to flip it on like another side, and if that was something that had occurred to you to do, as opposed to like fighting it out, you versus Brandon.
Yeah, that round we tried. Like we obviously tried, and then when it wasn't gonna land, it was like, okay, it's you or I. I love that it's shown in the moment. There's like one like conversation between Brandon and I. We're like, good luck. So it was like this mutual understanding, like we can't do it. So
yeah, victims of a lightning round, I will say. Sometimes, the game happens, and I wonder if you had more time if in that round, if
yeah, I think the biggest, like, there was just like that tribal before was so big, so I was trying to just minimize myself as much as I could. And even the round before that was so big, and like, Joseph was still, he just saved me, and I was confused, and then like Abby saved me, and I was like, I have a potential path here. Let's try to leverage that instead of just trying to fight, and where everyone like paired Brandon and I together. So let's just cut it off.
Yeah, very fair. You talked about how Abby just saved you, and this is a moment that I think we'll keep returning to, because he did save you, but he initially voted for you. And I'm curious, like, what your working relationship with Abby throughout the game was, because as we move more towards Final 6 and Final 5, the two of you sort of become quite the pair. So I'm curious to hear you talk about that.
Yeah. So before that vote, we would talk. We weren't really strategic with each other, but we had this understanding where, like, after I voted for him the first time, Abby was able to clear the air with everybody, and it was really impressive to see. And I felt like if I would have been with Abby early, we would have absolutely worked together. So it was kind of like a I wish type of thing, but it just wasn't in the cards. He wasn't in the castle. So, we weren't working together at that point. So when he saved me, I was honestly shocked. Watching back, it makes sense, because now it's like, hey, now Abby also just opened the door for a relationship with me, and I just lost my number one ally. Like, I've kind of got some free agency right now. So it was a good move on him.
Yeah, great. Abby, do you have a perspective on that you want to share while we're on the subject?
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting, right? Because it really just happened, like, as it happened. Like, I didn't go in like, yeah, I'm gonna flip. Like, it literally just happened, and I saw an opportunity where honestly I just did not see myself working with Ashley. I mean, she just wouldn't talk to me. She had her head down at tribal. I just didn't see any way. And at that point, I was so over that relationship. And I saw Nikki as an opportunity to work with someone that I thought was also a threat. And I felt like flipping my vote there will hopefully, like, I will gain some kind of trust with her, and she'll work with me going forward, which is what actually happened. So I was really excited when I did that. And as soon as like the vote, and I was like, I flipped. I kept you. I needed her to know that I kept her, because I needed her. I feel like she needed me. I needed her, and it was frustrating when, like, I feel like she wouldn't see that, and I'm like, I know exactly what I need to happen in order to make it far, and that's why we'll talk later. That's why at Final 9, I was like, I need Amy to go and I need Liz to go. I wish that showed. Sorry, it's kind of something that I wish showed, but that was always my goal, was to get like the players that I thought were not as strong. Well, they were strong, but they were not seen as threatening as me. Get them out and then be with the bigger players. So I was like, this is that perfect opportunity. And that's why I flipped, and I was really happy that I did.
Sure, great. So after this round, you lose Brandon. You win the next immunity challenge at night.
For nothing.
Yeah. Maybe we'll talk a lot about this as we go through the people here. So this final 7 round, had Amy not ultimately been evacuated, you're finding yourself finally with some safety.
Yeah, it was nice.
How would you have tried to capitalize on that?
Okay, so it's like a blessing and a curse, honestly, because I heard so many times, like, in different people's confessionals, like, well, Nikki can win an endurance challenge, like, after this. So it was like, I don't want to be, Nikki could win in a challenge, like. So it kind of I already had a target on my back, and I was trying to like minimize it, and then it kind of like rose a little bit. But I had to just fight. I love endurance challenges. So I'm really, really happy that happened, because I've always been like, I'm good at endurance challenges, but now it's like, yeah, I did it. So how I would have capitalized on that round, I would have tried to minimize myself. So I wouldn't have been the one like throwing things out necessarily. I just knew I was safe. So
sure, fair. And so ultimately, Amy is evacuated in this round, and so maybe it helps out that you didn't have to make any moves and you could lay a little low for an elimination. I don't know.
No.
Sorry.
Because the next round is Liz going home, and it's honestly one of my biggest regrets.
Sure.
I say that, but in the moment, I was like this broken game player, and I needed something. So when Francesca gave me an olive branch saying like this 4 threats alliance, I was like, okay, yes, like let's do it. I'm in. I was so fully in, but I was like, just really, Liz and I that night, we had such a good night together. We went out looking for sticks like all night, and we were just being stupid and goofy. And like, so it really broke my heart. And also, I think if it wasn't for Abby and wanting to work with Abby, Liz wouldn't be gone. And I would have just said, Abby, just like, forgive me later and let's move on from it. Which could have maybe got both of us to the end. Who knows? Yeah. But Abby wanted to gain trust in me, and I owed it to him. So it was like another big factor of that decision.
Sure. I guess I'm curious at this final 6 round. You talk about ultimately wanting to build the trust with Abby, which is why in the revote it doesn't tie. How prepared were you to like face a rocks situation? Because ultimately Liz and Francesca, neither one had passed votes against either of them, and so ultimately we would have gone to rocks there.
Do you know Francesca had a vote?
No, she didn't. She did not. So Liz and Francesca would have
none for pre-merge. This whole time I thought Francesca had a vote against her.
No.
I don't think we thought about that until this.
Oh, okay, great.
I
don't think we thought about.
I was like, well, she has one against her.
Situation.
Wait, we totally thought about it.
I think in the moment I thought Francesca had a vote, so I was like, I could have saved Liz.
Sure.
But I mean, I knew I was gonna flip it. The reason I tied it was just like a security thing for me. Yeah. How could I really trust Will and Francesca after like all of this?
Yes, totally.
Like begging to work with Will and him just like not having it. So, I had to try to save it anyway, save myself. So I don't know.
Okay. So I guess that's maybe a game-changing revelation here, that it probably would have gone to rocks, and Liz, Francesca, and I think Will was immune that round. So it would have been between Nikki, you, Joseph, and Abby.
That's crazy.
If you hadn't flipped. So.
Yikes.
Yeah. not a situation you want to be in.
No.
So can I just quickly say that me, Will, and Abby did have this conversation because we knew that Nikki had passed votes. So our choice was either like go with this 4 threats alliance and hope that she flips to Liz, or that she just votes for Liz, or vote for Nikki and then her past votes come into play. So this was a conversation all the way in the path, and then we decided to just go for Liz and cross our fingers. But yeah, nobody had past votes, or Liz and I did not.
Yeah. Crazy. Anyway, so then moving on into 5, Abby wins this immunity, and from the outside it seems like in this 4 threats alliance, Joseph's kind of a free player now. And so you guys choose to go after Will, and Joseph ultimately sides against you, and with Abby immune, that sends you home, Nikki. What did you see as like the state of the game in this round? Did you feel like you had Joseph on your side here?
No, I knew I was going home 100%. And this challenge, I was like, oh, this is one I could totally win. I own this challenge myself. So I felt confident going in it, and I just, one slight move. So I knew I was doomed. I mean, obviously I just like lied to Joseph, and he just, and before that he stuck his neck out to save me. So, obviously he was going to like flip on me, like, duh. So I wasn't surprised.
Sure. So is there a point at which you think that you would have done anything differently in this game? You emerge at Final Five as like a big threat to win. So I don't know if there's like a ton to quibble with here, but I'm curious if there's anything.
Oh my gosh, so much. But to just keep it short, and it's funny because it's like I didn't have this information when I was playing, but watching it back, I'm like, okay, well, Will, I wouldn't have put so much effort and communication into that relationship. So no. And then Abby, I wish that Ryan came into the merge thinking that he was like dead man walking, but watching it back and seeing Abby still say Ryan's his number one, even coming into merge, I was like, what the hell? Like, I could have capitalized on that, like had Ryan and Abby working with the castle. And then, things could, if Joseph kept being crazy and doing things without my knowledge, then we could have been like, okay, get out of the castle. Please go into the moat. And we would have been fine because we had Abby and Ryan, and Liz and Brandon, and Amy too. So it would have been nice. Yeah. But that's with all the information that I didn't.
Right, of course. Yeah, these retrospect questions, it's always a little like, it wasn't going to happen, but
no.
I think it's fun to look back on things.
Yeah, and then I also wouldn't have voted out Liz, but
sure. I will say your castle metaphor is just, as I'm thinking about it through this course of this conversation, it's very salient, and I like it a lot as a way to like think about your alliance structure.
Yeah. So I've never had power in a game like this, so it was really refreshing. And going back, I wouldn't have like been so obvious with it, but it was so fun, and I couldn't have I wanted to just live it in the moment. Like, that's so fun to play like that, and I'm glad I got the chance.
Great, love to hear it. So now we'll move on to Will on our fourth place vote. Will, you also had kind of a quote unquote boring pre-merge in that you didn't go to a lot of tribal councils, but you and Francesca had the fortune or maybe misfortune to attend maybe one of the crazier tribals in this season, which is saying something because there were many of those to come. But I'm curious how you felt like that moment, that Rede vote, opened your eyes to what you needed to do in this game, and affected your perspective going through the merge.
Yeah, that vote was like the changing point for my game, honestly. It's because prior to that, Ryan was my number one for sure. He was like the first person that talked to me strategically, and he was very good at like checking in constantly, whether you're on the tarp or going to the bathroom next to each other in the woods, which that as a first time player, I think I really needed that like reassurance. And he's why I felt pretty good on early Loma. And Francesca was like my number two, because she similarly came up to me and was pretty like aggressively forming an alliance with me. But Ryan was definitely above her. And then so when on that new tribe, the vote very quickly becomes about, Nick supposedly said my name, or they're lying and Nick didn't say my name, and Francesca is sticking so strongly with Nick. And then on the other side, I have Ryan, who's my number one, and Rede, who I had not been on a tribe with at all, but was like, we just had this like very strong eye contact connection where we and also like the very first challenge, me, Rede, and Liz kind of all worked together on the little puzzle, and I felt very good about that group. So I was very happy to be with him. And then the fact that I knew he was working with Ryan kind of, added gravity to that side, and is ultimately what I think drew me to that side, because on that side, I have two people I feel very good about. And then, Francesca, who I feel great about, but then Nick, who I really liked, but then I was being told he was lying to me, and I had to take that at some level of face value. So that's why I ultimately made that decision to flip on Nick, which didn't go the way that I wanted to in that moment, because Ryan switches his vote. And it's so interesting how like emotional we all were about that, because it's like a mistake. It's not right. Anything intentional, but we all felt so strongly about it. because I think for me, because I just like stuck my neck out there for him is what I felt like, and had to really reassure Francesca and Nick afterwards. And I was like, I'm in such a bad position because I just betrayed 2 of my allies for you, and this is what you did in return. So I was very like against working with Ryan, even though he was trying to work with me still after that. I think that's also an early bonding moment for Abby and I, because we were both pissed.
Yeah, that's not to interrupt you here, but I'm curious about your relationship with Abby in response to this moment in particular, because the 2 of you still like are able to work together, even though you do ultimately like keep tossing out his name as well. And I'm curious like how you felt like that relationship was, because it ultimately is like kind of important, but also like very contentious.
Yeah. I feel like he was a very intense player the first time I talked to him, and I think that's that's how I felt about Ryan too, even though I was very reassured by Ryan because he was my my number one. Also, honestly, I felt about Rade. Like those 3 were 3 very like hyper anxious players in a way, and this is partially because they were coming off of like 2 or 3 travels in a row, and after that vote, I felt like broadly, I was like, oh my God, I need to work with the people like Nick and Francesca who are like telling me they're going to do something and doing it, and just like very steady and low key. And that's kind of the philosophy that dictated my whole game from there on out. And that's kind of why, I knew Nikki was somewhat connected to Ryan. So I think that's part of the reason I was averse to truly working with Nikki, as good as I felt about her. But for Abby specifically, I felt great about him right after that because he was so angry, and we were just kind of bonding over that. And then pretty quickly, like within a round or 2, Abby was like, maybe we should start forgiving Ryan. I don't know. I'm less mad at him. And I was still like pretty anti-Ryan, and I felt like I was losing him to Ryan. And that's kind of what made me more willing to, jump in on the vote for him in the early merge.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Great. So then you ended up losing Nick early on to an idle play at another contentious tribal council. And you're kind of a quiet player, but I'm curious to hear you talk about like what your reaction was to sitting there and seeing like all the drama happen around you.
Yeah. So remind me why was there drama? I don't even.
Well, so this is when Brandon is immune.
Oh.
And Abby's like,
yeah.
I heard that you.
I felt this was good for me because my whole game plan in the early merge was, like, I have no idea what's going to happen with this many players in the game, but I knew from the 2 tribals right before merge, JoJo was like a huge chaos threat. Like I knew JoJo was going to be a good unanimous vote early on, and then Joseph also I felt like was another chaos threat who I didn't really know he was as well connected as he was, and then Ryan was the other one. So I was like, we have these 3 like easy targets, and I think I mentioned that in a conversation with someone. So that was my vision for like the first 3 votes, and then all that happening with Abby, it was just like, oh, Abby's becoming another one of those easy like predictable votes because everyone could get behind him.
Sure. Cool. And then I want to hear you talk about your relationships with Liz and Nikki. They both said that they both like really wanted to work with you throughout the game, and we don't actually see a lot of that in the episodes. And so I'm curious to hear your perspective on those relationships as helpful for you or not helpful for you throughout the game.
Yeah. For Nikki, I think like it's so interesting to think about early Loma. My perspective, I have no idea how that would have turned out because I had tried to talk to Brooke and Nikki like around the fire pit at one point just to like gauge how they were thinking, and I didn't get anything. I was trying to like do the soft launch of a strategy question, and I felt like I didn't get anything back. And so that's why those 2 were like on my bottom if we went early, because I felt good about Nick and Francesca and Ryan, of course. But like knowing how close Ryan was with Nikki, he definitely would have tried to sway me, and I don't know if I would have had the like courage that early in the game to go against who I had like called my number one. So I'm kind of like, it might've been Nick. I don't know. I don't really trust myself to have like, cause the way the Rade vote went, like, that's what happened. I went with Ryan. So but I hadn't talked with Nikki strategically. So when she came up to me very very enthusiastically on, I guess, the swap tribe, the fake swap was the first time we were back together, I think. It was like such a great conversation. I felt really good about it. Nikki was like, I feel like we think about the game the same way. I really have wanted to work with you. And I really believed her. And it was simultaneously, I felt really good about her, but also it was like made clear to me how much of a threat she was, just because it was like, oh, if I feel this good about her, I see that she has this castle around her. And I think I definitely was not aware of like the specific power structure. Watching the episode, I did not know that there was an alliance of like Amy and Joseph and Nikki and Liz, like after the blow up tribal. But I think I had some like vague sense of this general structure out there that Nikki and Brandon were in the lead of. And so that's why Nikki and I never really truly worked together, because it was just a bunch of unanimous votes. And then it was time where I felt like I had to get one of them out. And then after that, it was just like very interesting to have someone out there who I had voted for, like really like, I couldn't lie that I tried to get her out, and just have her in the game. It was very interesting and fun to play against / with her. And then Liz, like I said, I felt really good about her. She was like kind of the secret weapon to my game is what I felt like. But she was also very like mistrusting of me and Francesca. So I was always trying to balance that. And you see that in the episodes. And I felt like Liz was my ally in the Brandon Nikki group, because I felt like, I think that was established as a foursome. It was like Nikki and Brandon brought me and Liz in at the same time. And then right after that conversation, I'm like, Liz, this is good, but like we should be aware of the fact that they're obviously like more visible, proactive players than us. And I was kind of like trying to lay the groundwork and discuss with Liz at every chance I could get of like, when do we go for Nikki and Brandon? And I remember after the endurance challenge, we were the first two to drop, and we like ran back to camp to try to search for an idol before Abby could find one. And also we were talking about like, just more about like, actually, I guess that's later on. So we weren't talking, we were just like still kind of maintaining the game relationship. But yeah, so Liz felt really, really important to my game. And it was very fun working with her, because she was kind of this like secret relationship in a way, even though Francesca was also a secret relationship. But probably my favorite moment of the game was the Brandon scramble. We sit down, and I had made like my big pitch to Liz, where I was like, please vote with me on this. And I actually wanted Nikki out in that round first. And then I think Nikki's relationships protected her well, because like Joseph, Liz, they were all like, I would rather do Brandon than Nikki. So I was like, all right, good with Brandon. And then when we sat down, Allison asked us like, who, or Liz, like, describe how you're feeling in one word. And Liz says decisive. And I was like, okay, she's communicating to me with this tribal council question that she has decided, and I knew what her decision was. And then so it gets to me, and I say confident, which was my response to her. Like, I feel confident because of what you're saying. And I loved that moment. It felt like I was just like giddy inside about what was about to happen. So
yeah, great. So you talked kind of about this a little bit around the time that you end up voting for Nikki and Ashley goes home. But that's about the time when you say in a voting confession, like, I forget if it's this round or the round before, where you see that your alliances are not prioritizing you. And the middle of the game is kind of an important time for that. But what's tipped you off about that you were a little out on the outside? And obviously you hoped to take out Nikki or Brandon to do something about that moving into the end game. But what was your ideal situation at that point?
Well, as for what tipped me off, it was really the general sense in the first few votes that I didn't have like a structured alliance, but I felt okay about the people I was like had individual relationships with. And then what really tipped me off was when I guess it was, I didn't remember who it was, but I guess it was Nikki told me it was the vote was Francesca at final 9, I guess that would be. I had gotten weird vibes from the conversations at camp. One of the conversations I had was Amy, and Amy was, I think, selling me a bill of goods, just kind of being like, oh, I don't know, I've heard Nikki, I've heard like she said someone else, like and then other people were just kind of being vague. I think maybe like Abby was the other option, so people were just telling me Abby. And then on the way to tribal, I'm told it's Francesca, and I was like, that's kind of where everything felt like it was falling apart for me, because I was like, Francesca's my number one, and I felt like I had to protect the relationship because, like I say at some point in a confessional, like on one hand, it's because Francesca's an important number and she's going to vote with me, and on the other hand, like if I lose her, then what does that show about like how people, respected my own game? Like it felt like a big loss to me, and it was like a visible loss of power in a way that wouldn't look good. So I literally just like said what the first thing that came to mind, which was that, like, Nikki, I heard your name. And what I said in the moment was, Nikki, I heard your name from either Amy or Joseph, I can't remember. And then Joseph comes up behind us and he's like, I didn't say her name. I was like, okay, it was Amy. I didn't know like whether that would work or how much it contributed to the Abby flip, but it was just like a last ditch effort to like try to protect Francesca. And so from then on out, I was like, I'm going all out for Francesca, so I need to kind of keep going down this path.
Right. And was Francesca always like a crucial part of your end game? Like, were you really willing to sit next to her?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was. And I think, I mean, as we got towards the end, I wasn't really sure. I knew I wanted her in like the very, very end game. And then I think in the moment I felt like I needed to get her out. I was like threatened by her social charisma, and like I was just kind of like a deadpan presence. Like I would not look good, I think, next to Francesca. But I also felt like I was like had more relationships that I could point to. So I wasn't sure. I was waffling, and I think the emotional difficulty of like betraying her and plus the risk of it potentially not even being the right decision, I think would have made me lean towards like staying with her. But it's hard to say like whether I would have gone to the end with her.
Sure. And then let's talk a bit about the final 4 round, because this is ultimately where you get voted out by Francesca's own hand. And I guess just first of all here, like, did you feel betrayed by that in the moment? Obviously, you vote for her to win 2 times, but initially, like, what was there a sting to that?
Honestly, like, no. I think for a combination of reasons, like I was really really losing steam. That last day is so hard, and it was all kind of hitting me, and I was struggling to like remember specific votes as I was starting to try to prepare for final tribal, and I was getting nervous about final tribal and like my ability to perform. So in a way, I was like satisfied to like go out in this narratively interesting way of my closest ally turning on me. Obviously, like I was sad to go out, but I think it made me feel better that it was like the right move for Francesca. I felt I was already feeling bad about potentially going to the end with her and potentially beating her, because as much as I say I wasn't confident, I like felt really proud of my game and good about my game, and felt like there was a chance at least to win against her. Or on the other hand, if I cut her, like either one wouldn't have felt good. And so just like, it was kind of a relief that like she got that over on me first, and we didn't have to deal with one of us, or with me like prevailing over her in a way that would have made me feel guilty.
Sure. And do you have any regrets from your game? Anything that you would have done differently now looking back on it?
Honestly, like not many. I'm really happy with the fact that my game was like kind of messy at the beginning. Like that first vote where I flipped on Nick and voted not with Francesca, I think was very messy, but it was like, I think necessary for like me to realize like what kind of people I value as allies and all that. And it's like fun to have your flaws be a part of your story and to like grow as a part of your game. And I was very proud of the game I ultimately played. And I think maybe like the end, like that last round, I started to realize like, oh, Francesca's only other move is to go for me. And I hadn't really considered that until the very last few minutes of the round. And I knew that's what Abby had to be pitching her. And I didn't really like lean forward and like make my final like plea to try to like guilt trip Francesca into not voting for me. Like I didn't do any of that. So that's probably the major regret, that I could have done something there. I don't know if there's anything I could have done to prevent Joseph from flipping on the tie, but if there was, I would have done that, because fire making would have been so sick against Abby, like because either I win fire making and I think that really strengthens a resume for me, or I lose and it's just like a cool way to go out, and that would have been like the full experience. So yeah.
Sure. Joseph, was there any chance that you would not have flipped there?
Yes, but I had to, after being quite chaotic in other parts of the game, which I'm sure we'll talk about, I was like, no, this could be the one thing that really is like the nail in my coffin. So I was like, it was too big of a risk, but like was said, it would have been pretty fucking fun to watch either way. Yeah, and I remember sitting there and like, it found out at the time, like all the rest of production that was still like in the field were like coming to like line up and watch and see whether it was going to happen, and then everyone was disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, when the vote ties, and instantly it's like, okay, get the fire making stations ready, and then we were like, okay, bring them back out, we're done. No, we're not happening. It's just that's a sort of behind the scenes a moment of all that. Yeah, but I think
was it actual fire making?
Yes. The only reason in season 3 it wouldn't have been is because Nina got to pick what the final 4 tiebreaker was as part of the choose your own adventure twist thing. But in Outlast at final 4, if it ties on a revote, we'll make fire. So
we're talking to the fire making winner of season 2.
Yeah, I didn't do it with Flint though. I had to go to matches. Because I had never done it before. Yeah, so anything else from your game that you want to talk about before we move on to Abby?
I don't think so. It was just like the best experience ever. I was very, very grateful to play.
Great. Love to hear it. So Abby, we come to you now. And I know that we have a ton to get through, because I think if there's a lot of big characters this season, and I think none bigger than you. You have a real up and down trajectory over the course of the season, and every round, like us on production, we're just like, he's still here. How could it be? What's happening? Via idle plays and clutch immunity wins, it all just like kept adding up. And so I'm curious to hear you talk through your game, but to start, I'd love to hear your perspective on like how you play Survivor, what your general approach to games like this are, and if this was similar to how you've played in the past. You mentioned having a lot of experience before, or if you tried anything new this time around.
Yeah, this was a very unique experience, even though I played so many times before. I go into these games, and as soon as I step into the mat, like I'm automatically a threat, whether I do nothing at all in the game. It's just sort of like I inherit a threat level coming into the game. It could be maybe my physical appearance, I don't know. So I'm kind of used to that. But coming into this game, I was like, okay, cool. My goal is always to just use my social abilities to be able to get far in the game, build alliances, and I'm very, very loyal. So I'm like, find my people and then just stick with them. And they eventually end up getting rid of me at like final 4, final 5. But I have like loyal people that I'm working with throughout the game. and makes the game a little bit easier. So it's kind of like either I get out very early because I'm a throw, I'll make it far with a group of people that I'm working with, and then give it out for potentially being the one that will win the game at the end. Here it just felt like it started like that, where I felt like I had people that I really trusted and worked with, and then once my name came up at Final 11, it just felt really hard to play that way. I tried so hard to get people to trust me, and nothing was working. I mean, I'll forgive people, and then my name will be brought up the next vote. So it was really difficult. So this game was very much about being very adaptable and just being very resilient in terms of like never giving up, and just like I literally could not stop thinking about the game at any given point, which honestly was kind of crazy. Like I remember very visually, there was this one moment that I was just like sitting there like with a blank like stare. Like I could see myself right now, like sitting there at the bench, and then you think that I'm just like daydreaming, but I'm thinking about like the game and like looking around and like just like brainstorming how the fuck I'm gonna like how I'm going to like survive this round. So it was very different than any game that I played before, but it was the most fun way to play. I've never played from the bottom like that, where I had no choice but to be able to do whatever I could do. And honestly, it was so much fun because it was like I have nothing to lose but so much to gain. So I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. I'm going to say whatever I want to say, and I'm going to do what it was just so fun to play that way. Like it was very interesting and different.
Great. One other difference I think for you this game is you talked about the beginning is the sleeping outside part of this. You were perhaps slightly unprepared for what that experience would be, and I'm curious to hear you talk about like how the conditions change your willingness to play the game, and then something different than like a one-day game that's maybe a little bit smaller, or an online game where you are in the comfort of your own home at least. If that changed your mindset at all in any of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely hard because, at least the first night, like I think I slept like an hour, and it was not a consistent hour. It was like I slept like 15 minutes, wake up, turn around, another 15 minutes, and it was cold. One night I was fully wet. I mean, it was really difficult, but I think at some point, like none of it mattered. It was just like the game was priority over anything else. Even though I was hungry, I was tired. Like none of that really, like I don't think at any point, maybe I did, I'm saying this now, right? But I don't think at any point I felt like burnt out necessarily. Like I was just like, my head was in the game the entire time, and I was just playing hard, and everything else just became secondary at that point.
Sure. So you mentioned the night that you were all wet. We'll come back to some of your votes in the pre-merge again, because I think big moment. But one of the things that I have not quite been able to figure out is how, I know it was dark, but you walked into camp having had water dumped all over you, and no one suspected a thing. Do you know why?
Yeah, well, I want to talk about that a little bit, like, because just like it's such an interesting thing, right? Because I find this clue to an idol. I know Amy has one, and my mind is like, okay, I need to somehow like be able to get there as soon as I can, because she's coming over to our tribe. And I've been preparing, because I know it's said like as soon as your handler like says goodnight, you can go on and do your thing. And I'm like telling people like, hey guys, I really got to use the bathroom. I'm a really just shy. I'm a shy pooper, so I don't want to go anyone, because every time we want to go to the bathroom, everybody wants to go together. And I'm like planning all of this thing, and then finally they leave, and then Amy's like, no, I gotta use the bathroom. I'm like, no girl, I was like, I've been waiting, I gotta go. Anyways, I run, obviously get a bunch of water poured on me, which was insane. I don't know what I was thinking. And then I just get back, and I was just like really smart about it. I remember telling Liz, I'm like, hey, like I think I asked them, like, I feel like my clothes are wet, and she's like, yeah, the ground sometimes like has like water, and like sometimes that. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. Do you mind hanging up like my my sweater, because it's pretty wet? And then Liz wearing like she thought nothing about it. So it was such an interesting way to play it off, because I really was like really stressed out about being wet and people noticing, but I think I played it off like super well, to be honest.
Yeah. Liz, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, can I share my perspective?
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, like the next, I think it was in the morning, you were like, it was your buff, and you were like, wow, like it's really wet. And I was like, yeah, it is. Like, and in my head, I know I was like, this man sweats. I was like, he sweats through his thing in a cold overnight. And I was like so confused. And then I also was like, I was like, oh, he got to go to the bathroom by himself. Like, he's so lucky. And then Amy was gone for a long time, longer than you made it back before her. And Ashley and I walked through the woods because we thought Amy died. We were like, production has gone home. Amy's dead. So there should be footage of me and Ashley walking through the field going, Amy, are you okay? Amy, are you okay? Not once did it cross our mind that anything was happening. You played it off so well, Abby.
Great. But getting back into the strategy and the voting, once the swap comes, you end up going to a lot of tribal councils, and you form kind of a close relationship with Ryan and Rade. That all kind of like comes into flames when Rade is voted out. So I'd love to hear your perspective on Ryan's decision to flip his vote, thinking that something different was happening than what actually was happening, and how you built back with him and also with Will.
That round was really frustrating, you know, because look, I'm loyal and I'm gonna go with my allies no matter what, and that's just how I play the game. And you know, even though Ryan ultimately turns on me, I would say during the pre-merge, I think a lot of the reasons that I did survive had to do with Ryan having my back. He was loyal because, you know, I went into a tribe, into a swap that I was basically in the minority and was able to get into the majority with the old Lima, which was basically Brooke, Ryan, and Nick. So going into that round, you know, honestly, I wanted Will out. It just made the most sense. I wanted to where Francesca was another Latina. I had already like this thing going on with Ryan and Nick. It just made to me so much sense. And then Ash was from my original tribe. And then out of nowhere, Ryan just wanted to flip it. And I was like, wait, really? Like, he's like, yeah, it's like without Nick. And I'm like, okay, like, I don't think it makes so much sense. You know, we've been working with him. He's loyal to us. Like, I just don't see him ever turning on us. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. So then, you know, we go in and he does that. And it's just, I'm pissed at him because I'm like, I didn't want to do this. I honestly didn't want to vote for Nick. And I think that's why me and Will were really upset, because we were doing something that we didn't necessarily want to do. And we stuck to it because we trusted Ryan, and he kind of went and like flipped his vote that round. So it was very frustrating. That's when I started to question whether, you know, it made sense to work with him. But I'm very forgiving. I was like, you know what, like, I can't let this be the reason why I let my number one like go. Like, I have to kind of just get over it and like just let him know that, like, I mean, I definitely went off on him, so ripped him a new one. But definitely was like, you know, I was still willing to work with him, because to me, it didn't make sense to like throw away a relationship over like one round, you know, when we've been working together for so many rounds before.
Sure. So then, you know, moving ahead a bit into the merge, the first vote is pretty consensus on JoJo, but the next round is pretty consensus on you. Luckily, you have an idol and are able to save yourself there. Did you think there that every vote would be coming down on you? And did you think that you had like some allies left that were voting?
The honest truth is I didn't. Like, I genuinely, like, I felt like there were some people that I would say, like, I just felt this instant connection at some point with Francesca and Will. Like, I don't know what it was, but I was so attached to them. Like, there were so many moments that they were walking, I was walking with them. Like, I was just so attached, you know? So, and I felt really good about Liz at that point too, because I remember, like, and I told Liz this, and I told this during the game, I'm like, I went to Allison and I was like, this is the best casting thing that you've done, because she's amazing. Like, we just had like really good relationships. So, you know, I was not expecting to get all those votes. I knew that I was going to probably get majority. I knew that I was playing my idol at that point in time. So like, I didn't care. Like, I just wanted to kind of, because I didn't know that I was getting votes, right? I had a feeling in my gut that I was potentially getting a vote. And I thought that I kind of read Brandon's lip, and I think he said Abby, but I wasn't sure. So I needed to find out, am I actually the vote? And that's why I caused all that chaos. But no, to answer your question, sorry, I did not think I was going to get all the votes that round because I felt like I had some really good relationships with certain people. So that was definitely very like shocking to me. I was like, damn, like I got all 10 votes, I think it was. It was crazy.
Yeah. I think maybe not the biggest idol play in Outlast history, because we've had a couple that have happened at large votes, but definitely one of the biggest.
I think I have the record for most like nullified votes.
That makes sense. I would be shocked if we didn't. So your one vote ends up sending out Nick there, and I guess I'd love to hear you talk about more, like, if you truly had your pick of the whole litter at that moment, like, is Nick the one that you would have sent home, or if you could have, if you knew that it was anyone, would you pick someone different?
Yeah, like the truth is that I wanted it to be Joseph, right? I went into that voting for Joseph that round. That's what I was going to vote for, because I did feel like me and Nick, even though I have voted for him, I feel like we really we fixed things. I felt good about him. I still a little bit on mine. I'm like, if I voted for you once, will you really ever trust me ever again fully? But you didn't know. But because I was, Joseph basically was the only person I felt was honest with me, I couldn't vote for him. Like, he had me locked in from that point on. But I was campaigning so hard for Nick because, again, I did not think that I was going to get all of the votes, and I didn't think to campaign for someone else. I'm like, okay, I just need to try to see. I don't want to be the one that has majority of the votes, even if I'm using my idol. But Nikki would have definitely been my choice. I was so mad at her. I was so mad at Brendan, first of all. Right. And I was like, I need to get him. Like, I was like, I need to make. That's why I was like trying to make them start, because I was so mad that he was like campaigning against me, because we were from the original. Like, my original trial was with him, so I didn't expect for him to come after me so early on. So definitely would have been Nikki, like 100%. Like, if I knew that if in my mind I was like, my vote is the only one that's going to matter here, I would have 100% voted Nikki that round.
Totally. Very interesting. Would have changed a lot, I think. But the next round, you end up winning immunity with rocks, paper, scissors, shoe, or a variation on it. I'm curious if you had a strategy in that game, because it is something that, in theory, would be hard for a pariah such as yourself that has just played an idol to win an immunity challenge that's largely socially based, unless you're just really good at rock, paper, scissors. But I'm curious if you had any strategy going into that challenge in order to try to win immunity.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that challenge is, obviously there's some luck between it, but then it's definitely some strategy. Like, you're definitely really thinking about which one. Like, it's not, you're not picking a random one. Like, you're really thinking about it. But there was some strategy in terms of, like, I wanted people that voted me. Like, my goal was to make people feel bad for voting me out, and using that to my leverage, right? So then when Will was going against me, like, I asked him to throw it to me, and he did. And I also asked Joseph to throw it to me as well, and he also did. So, really, I mean, I've always been told, like, if you don't ask, you're not gonna get. So I'm always like, just gonna ask and see what happens. And I think I probably asked somebody else to throw it to me. But I think that really helped me, because I got 2 points that I don't know that I would have 100% gotten right. I would have been, otherwise I wouldn't have gotten it tied and potentially won that round if they didn't give me their votes, or like threw it to me the round that I was with them.
Yeah, cool. And so then, you make it through that round. The next round, you play your idol again, and Ashley goes home. So now this is like 3 rounds in a row that you're like really under the gun. In the aftermath of this round, who did you see like any potential path working with? Like, who was, maybe everyone's low because they've all voted for you 2 times, but like, who was the person that you felt most like you could work with?
It was definitely Joseph. I mean, he didn't vote for me that round, right? I mean, after final 11, like, he didn't vote for me at all until the final 4. But Joseph was definitely the person that I felt 100% the closest to. He was my number one. And he showed it to me again after not voting for me. But then also Nick, I'm getting the rounds confused. This is when we flipped.
Yeah, this is when Brandon goes home in the speed round.
Okay. Yeah, I think I also at that point feel like I can work with Nikki. I'm like, I just saved her. and I'm like, we could be a really dynamic duo together. So I'm feeling really close about Joseph and Nikki, but still feeling close to Will and Francesca as well on this side, but not 100% sure. Like, are they going to stick with me like long term? But definitely like those 4 are the people that I'm like, this is my 4 that I want to work with going forward after the final 8.
Sure. And then the decision to vote out Brandon happens, and you make it through yet another round. Did you feel at this point now like you've maybe passed the point at which people are like going to be taking like the main shot at you for now, and are maybe going to try to push off as long as possible? So how do you end up in an end game situation where you feel like people aren't going to cut you? You've made it past a point where a majority maybe will vote for you because you're a big threat, and other big threats now want to protect you. But who were the people that like you thought were really going to pull you to the end?
I felt really confident about Nikki at that point, just because I know that she was also another threat. And I think she saw it, right? I think she finally was like, yeah, like this makes so much sense for us to work together, because no one else is going to take us to the end. Like, let's be honest. Like, I think at that point, like, it's very hard for me or Nikki to make it to the end. And I think my only chance at that point is for her to be with me, because she's also good at challenges. Because I know I'm not good at puzzles. I'm like, if it's puzzles, I'm done. So I'm like, I need someone that's a threat, that's good at competition, that's going to help me get to the end. Obviously, I still had Joseph, but I wasn't 100% sure. Will he actually like take me to the final, right? Will he want to sit with me at the end? So definitely at that point, I'm like, Nikki's my way to the final 2 seats. Like, I think I say it in one of my confessions. I'm like, I really see, her actually taking me to the end.
Sure. So Nikki said that she was not shocked at all that she got voted out at 5. You voted with her. Were you surprised that Joseph was against you?
I was shocked. I don't know how she wasn't. I was shocked. I did not. I honestly, I know that I had just, so I mean, if we go back around, right, I did lie to Joseph, right? And that was the first time where I kept him in the dark, and that made me a little bit like, I think I went to Nikki and I was like, "Oh, you sure we have Joseph?" Because I was a little nervous because I had just kind of like, I don't think I betrayed him, but I kept him in the dark about something that I was doing, but I still trusted him. Like, it was like, that's my guy. Like, I don't know, and I felt like he felt closer to Nikki than he did to Francesca and Will. So I'm like, I think we're good. It's gonna be the 3 of us, and I think I see us being at that point. I think I saw us being the final 3, honestly. So I was very shocked. I was like, damn. I had a little bit of a feeling, but I thought that we could really, like, the 3 of us could really be like the final 3.
Totally. And then you pull through final 4 as well after a tie. And I'm curious there if you felt like you were really, you just lost Nikki in a surprise. You didn't have immunity. You can't play an idol. What work did you put in to get it? Francesca is ultimately the vote that you need to tie in Will. Like, what work did you put in there to make that happen?
Yeah, it's, in a way, it helped that Joseph was so blunt, because I was so mad at him. I mean, it doesn't show, but like the way that he told me that he was voting me off it was so, and this, I already talked about this, it was so hurtful. You know what I mean? It was so like cold-blooded. Like, it was just like no emotions behind it. It was just like, I'm voting you out. Like, I swear that's how he said it. It was like, I'm voting you out. And I'm just like what? Like, what is going on right now? I mean, I had a feeling, right? I know that I'm a threat, but I'm like, this is the person that I've been working with since Final 11. I've done nothing to protect. I mean, he's protected me, I protected him. Even the vote with Liz, right? People wanted Joseph. I think Francesca and Will preferred Joseph, and I was like, no, I want Liz. Like, I was protecting him. So, but then that helped me focus, because I'm like, okay, like, he's so done with me. My only chance is Francesca. And I laid it out for her. I was like, I already know the way Joseph is thinking. He's going to take Will to the final 2. Will, as he had a really great chance to win, but I just knew that, I think that he gets a little nervous and shaky when he speaks. So I'm like, he won't really be able to defend himself in the jury. I'm like, Francesca, this is clear as day. Your best bet is me in the final 3, because no matter what, you go to the final 2. If you save me here, like there's no chance that if I win that immunity somehow final 3, you're guaranteed final 2. If Joseph wins, you're guaranteed final 2. If you win, you're guaranteed final 2. So I think that really helped her be like see it, and I'm sure I think Joseph sent into her too that also like impacted her decision. But I was really on her. I know that she was probably annoyed because I was not. I would not shut up. One thing about me, I was going to talk your ear off in campaign into the very last moment. I think I said, which is like, fuck, I'm just gonna save him because you can shut up.
Yeah.
But I think that really was like what honestly like saved me that round, because I do think that I going into that round, I think that I was potentially just going to be voted out, honestly.
Totally. And then, you know, at final 3, ultimately you don't win the challenge, and your time comes and Francesca sends you home. I assume you were not terribly shocked about that, or were you?
No, I knew that it was, you know, I think it was my best chance was her winning, because I just feel like at that point I feel like Joseph was not going to take me, and you know, I felt that I could at least argue, you know, and try to campaign to stay. Whether it worked or not, I was gonna try. And then, you know, I really did try to sell like the 2 Latinos at the end. I mean, I think it would have been like really iconic, honestly. Like I really would have loved that. You know, being 2 Latinos at the end, it would have been great. But like I knew that it was gonna be hard for me to be in the final 2 at that point, because, you know, I had a high chance of winning based on like the game that I played, and it was very scary sitting next to me at the end. So it wasn't a shocker, but I did have like a little bit of hope, like a tiny bit that she would just like keep me and like take me to the final 2 with her, because I think Joseph had also played like a very, very, very strong game too.
Right. Do you have any regrets? Anything that you wish you had done differently?
Any regrets? My only I don't regret anything, because I think that like every move that I made sense to me at that point in time. But there's one I do wish that at final 5 I didn't get comfortable. Actually, production showed us like where the idol was, and I think if I would have looked an extra few minutes, I would have 100% found a third idol, because I was looking already and I was very close. But because I was like, I feel kind of comfortable at final 5. I think I was immune, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know, like whatever. But I do wish that I just did it, because then I would have found that their idol and I would have 100% used it on Nikki, and I think that would have changed. Like I would have had her locked in with me even more. And that would have been insane. Like it would have been a third idol play correctly. It would have just been so fucking cool.
Yeah.
So that's my one thing that I just wish I looked. I swear, like maybe another like 2 or 3 minutes of me looking, and I would have found the idol, because I was very close to where it was.
Sure. Anything else before we move on to Joseph that you want to talk about? No,
nothing else on my end.
Cool. Great. So Joseph, our Chaos King, you know, you're a very fun player to watch. You know, always moving and shaking and deciding like what the best path for you is at various points. And yeah, a big power player through the game. So I'm curious to hear you start similar to Liz. You get a tough beginning where you know are losing a lot and then are safe for a while. And similar to Liz, I'm curious how you were able to capitalize on that for yourself, even while, you know, causing some chaos with the idle play during the book vote.
I think it really helped that on the original Aho, it was just it was just kind of really looking back at it now, just so absurd that even though we all knew we had to go to the first tribal, we were just like, how about we just go to sleep? And just not talk about it. And then we get up and we're like, should we talk about it? So it kind of gave me an impression of at least how everyone at Aho was playing, but everyone was just really nervous. And I think, I mean, I was nervous as well, but I really made like a conscious decision to suppress a lot of my emotions in the first part because I felt like all the other people that were getting a bit too anxious and being vocal about it really kind of like steamrolled their own games, especially in the early portion. And Liz and me, like, we had a great relationship from the get-go. It's probably like my favorite relationship that I've got from the whole game, because we just hit it off. And I felt like, I think at one point in one of my confessions, I describe it as like my Christina Yang to my Meredith Grey, kind of like, you're my person kind of situation. That's how like deep I felt. And I know that Liz was also quite good with Renee as well after the fact. I didn't know that before. So I guess because we went to back at the start, it was, I guess, great for solidifying my relationship with Liz. And then the next day, coming into like the swap and the brains versus brawn of it all, I really tried to, especially after having to go on to two travels. I think it was two travels back to back? I really tried to leverage creating some new relationships with the people that were on these new tribes that I was with, because my original numbers already dwindled. And then as soon as I saw Hannah go and then Renee go, I was like, oh shit, it's just me and Liz for a level left. I really have to like get all these connections coming through. So I think that's kind of the way that I was trying to build up these connections in the first half of the game to make sure that I was able to rely on these and leverage on them in the second half of the game. So it was really kind of like building up social capital the first half. And then I guess the chaos level really only just came from initially the Super Idol play. And in my defense, like, for some reason, I actually just was genuinely paranoid that for some reason I was going to converse. And then I tried to play it off like, no, I was trying to get rid of the Super Idol. It was fine. It was like a really super power strategic move. In all honesty, I was like polishing a turd.
Sure. I mean, this is something I think is so interesting about like your final title performance and you as a player too, is like your willingness to like lie, because I think, you know, all's fair in Survivor, and I think you made like a really great lie here, if I'm being totally honest, because nobody, unless you told someone that it was like actually a mistake, and you know, nobody's gonna know what your intention was, and ultimately, like, if you didn't see a path forward with the Super Idol, toss it, whatever. You know, your lie there, like, and the conviction with which you sold it at Final Tribal Council was very believable, I felt. I remember during the game watching that, you know, like we don't see any confessionals necessarily as production. So I had no idea that it was, you know, not intentional. So that's something I give you a lot of credit for as a player, is being able to polish a turd, as you said. Because I do think that ultimately Survivor is a lot of that. It's really just like reframing how people see the rest of it, and you know, a true Chaos King can do that.
Yeah, I guess perception in these games, perception is reality, and there are certain times where the chaos was like accidental, and I'm like, how do I fix this? And I guess some other times the chaos was intentional, and I knew what the outcome was going to be. But I guess I really viewed it as trying to get it to, instead of being like, oh fuck, I made a mistake, I guess I'll just move on. I really tried to turn it into something positive, at least for my game.
Yeah.
Even if it was like a mistake. And I remember we were walking back from that vote, and I was telling everyone, like, I'm so sorry. Like, I genuinely was like paranoid. I had no idea. And then when I was like having my confessional therapy sessions, I was like, wait a second, I can turn this into something good. And it kind of like ran with that from there.
Totally. So then that brings you through the merge, and your name is one of the like three names that's kind of tossed around. I think it's like Nick, you, and JoJo as like the big threats at the beginning of the merge. And unlike the two of them, you skate by without receiving a vote in this portion of the game. And I strangely think that part of this is your willingness to be direct with Abi at his first idle play, where you directly tell him at tribal council that you heard his name. So talk to me a little bit about that decision to say it so publicly in that forum. Did you know that he had an idol that he might play to protect himself? Did you just want him to know that you were with him? What was the goal there?
I mean, I wasn't with him. I voted for him.
Right.
But I remember it was me, Brandon in the middle, and then Abby next to him. And Abby's like back this way, asking me the question about whether I heard about it. And I could tell from the way that he was looking at me and the tone that he already knew. It was like getting caught red-handed and just like asking, are you going to lie about it or not? Because I know. And then Brandon's just sitting there looking at me, just be like, don't say it. Don't do it. And I was like, I think because I hesitated, I was like, oh, the writing's on the wall. So I was like, it's probably better just like come clean, and not knowing at all that I was potentially going to be the sole vote person there. And so I'm glad that I trusted my gut at that point and was like, I think I need to tell the truth here.
Yeah.
And that started, I guess, the new relationship that I had with RB. And you mentioned that it was JoJo, Nick, and I that were these names at the start of Merge. I think my strategy changed at Merge, where I started to see, because everyone had come together, a lot more people feeling like they were on the outs. There was Ryan that came in the Merge that felt a bit deflated, and I was like, I have these good relationships and alliances like the Castle forming and the Host Alliance that are all great, but I also need more options. So I really went and tried to befriend and make better relationships with people that felt like they're on the bottom or in trouble. And I hope that one, it was good jury management, but also two, that if my name was not on the Castle side, but on the other side, there'd be someone there that would be saying, oh, that's not a great idea, because I'm hopefully the glimmer of hope or like the olive branch for them. Right. So I tried to do that with Ryan. I usually try to do that, not intentionally with Arby, but telling the truth and then kind of like going on after that. I found that was a great and fulfilling relationship for me just in the game from a personal perspective. And having someone that I could just be completely honest with. Not that I wasn't with Liz either, but this is just a refreshing, different kind of relationship that we have that was very, always strategic, which I really enjoyed. I found that sometimes Liz, our conversations are, well, not always strategic, but only because we'd walk up to each other and be like, is this the plan? Yeah, that's the plan. Okay, cool. Trust you. Catch you next round. Just finish talking. But Abby, we always have like a bit more in-depth conversations, which I really enjoy, like the nuance. So that was kind of like my strategy and early Merge to try and get that target on my back by making friends with people that felt like they're on the bottom and giving them like a sense that I could help them if they ever needed, or I was an ear on the other side inside the castle being like, okay, your name is out there. Because I there was a lot of times that I don't think it's really ever shown that there was so many people I went up to and I was like, yeah, you're the vote. I don't know if there's much I can do, but like, let's try and work something out. I was a serial leaker.
Sure. I'd love to hear you talk about your position within the Hosts Alliance. You mentioned that was like a structure that you're very invested in. And I'm curious, like how, Liz told us that it was very clear that Nikki and Brandon were just very close. And so ostensibly, you're in a 3 with the 2 of them. So how much like long-term structure and how long-term investment did you put into that group as something that would be really helpful for you throughout the game?
I wouldn't say like I actively pursued it. Like it was proposed to me and I was like, well, I'd be silly to say no. But because I felt like Nikki and Brandon were so close, I did had in the back of my mind that it could be a third person on the outside of these two. But I think one of the other main things is that for some reason, I just didn't feel like I understood Brandon, or I didn't feel like we hit it off. And I don't know, there was just something that I just didn't. There was something grating in the communication that we had, or the way that we interact with each other, that it just wasn't gelling as some of the other relationships that I had formed with Nikki or Liz or Arby. So that was quite a considerate factor that I'd never like vocalized because I didn't want to destroy. That was such a good thing that we had going with the alliance anyway. And then it turned into the castle. And then when it turned into the castle, I kind of like had my Game of Thrones hat on and be like, well, there can't be three people on the throne here. Someone has to be like Cersei'd out of here at some point.
Right.
So that's how that's the way that I viewed those, both the host alliance and also the castle as well.
Cool. And then so one of the big moments in the game, of course, is Abby's second idol play, where you throw a vote on Ashley as he votes for Nikki. Talk through again what that decision came down to, because I know there was a plan for Liz to also vote for Ashley at some point, and ultimately you're the only one that does, which is what sends it to a revote. But what that decision had done for you?
I think because one, I think at that point I was quite sure where Abby was voting. I think there was one or two conversations. And I think it was Francesca and Avi were not arguing, but like having a discussion about what to do. And I'm like, and they couldn't come to a decision. I'm like, guys, if you don't come to a fucking decision, I'm going to vote for one of you. And I mean, I was just to get them to commit to something, because the conversations are going around in circles. So I was like, okay, maybe I can protect Nikki in this case. And I'm pretty sure it was Will that came up to me and said that Liz was going to vote Ashley, and I was like, that doesn't sound like something Liz would do. Something's weird going on here. And I was like, having been apparently one of the only people that learned from the last vote, what happens when you all dogpile on someone. It was like an insurance vote more than anything else. And I guess the reason why I chose Ashley is similar to what Abby has vocalized. There was no game. There's no way to work a field together, and I would rather keep a bigger threat in the game and possibly someone I could work with, as opposed to someone I didn't see as a big of a threat, but I found no way to play our games together or anything like that. So I guess that's the way that it transpired, and that's the reason why I chose Ashley. I definitely hesitated, and I was like, I could vote Francesca, but I didn't. And I think that's actually a testament to Francesca's social game at the time, that the reason why I didn't vote for her, because I felt like we had an opening to work, kind of, but not really. And that's why I voted Ashley.
Sure. Well, fast forward through a couple rounds, and feel free to go back if there's anything that you want to specifically talk about. But when Liz is voted out at 6, after that you decide to work with Will and Francesca instead of Nikki and Abby. And what spurred that decision, considering that you had been working with Abby and had been building sort of bridges with him throughout the game? At this point, like why go with Francesca and Will at 5?
I was completely blindsided by that vote. I had no idea that Liz was going to go. So that was a big factor of like, oh, I've just been like bamboozled here, and I saw an opportunity to like even the playing field, I guess, because I was like, Abby didn't keep me on this vote. I wish someone told me about it. So Will and Francesca seem open to Nikki, who I thought was not just because of the endurance challenge win, but I will be responsible for fueling a lot of that fire, being like, wow, Nikki would be great at like the final challenge, blah, blah, blah. I really like pushed that because I knew it would build up a bit of a story. But having said that, she'd also played a great game. So having had such a honest, loyal relationship with Abby up until that point, since the start of after that vote, I thought Nikki was the better choice for my game at the moment. And with Will and Francesca being on board for that, I deliberately tried to ensure that Arby didn't know about it, so I could, in my mind, even the level playing field of being left out of a vote, I guess, and making a move. So I guess that was my thinking in that particular round. Yeah.
Cool. Great. And then who out of this final four, who was your like number one choice to sit next to at the end?
I think it was Will. Partly because I thought Francesca had a great social game and Arby had a great survival game. And I think that, yeah, those were the main factors. And we talked about this Final Four vote earlier tonight. And I guess the reason why I was so blunt to Arby was because in my mind, I've used being honest as a way to build our relationship. And I guess in my mind, I thought, what's one more round of like honesty, even if it's like really painful truth. That at that point, I really kind of like did want Arby out. I wish I approached it differently because I realized after the fact I could have had a lot more power. Like had I worked with Arby to get Will and Francesca to pitch against each other, and we both would have been safe, and it could have been a 2-1-1, I guess, vote. So I think, I know you're going to ask the regret question, but I think that's the main thing that I regret, how I approached the Final Four round. And I don't think I would have lied to Arby in that moment, but I think maybe I would have approached it a bit differently and maybe not be as cold or blunt. I was also really tired. It was the end of the day, and the rain at the start of the day like really sapped a lot of energy out of me because I thought I had a waterproof jacket and it was not waterproof. And so I was cold, I was tired, and I was like, I just really don't want to beat around the bush about this. And that's why I was like so, I guess, blunt about the whole situation.
Sure. And so then, Francesca ultimately wins the final immunity challenge, votes out Arby, and so it's the two of you. What was your sitting in Final Tribal Council? What was the like in your head, the like story you had to tell in order to get the votes to win?
I knew that I was confident that I had a couple of votes locked in already just from good relationships and a feel I had with certain people. But I think when I was thinking about votes that were in the air, the story that I had to tell really was this polish a turd without them ever knowing it was a turd in the first place.
Sure.
And I guess a lot of people were, when you kind of like, not say that I was covert in a lot of like my relationships, but when like you do have a lot of options around and everyone thinks your name was about, but it never really was like that much of a threat to really be the name that everyone relies on. It's how do you explain whether was that a happy accident or was that all manufactured and everything I did every round was something to ensure that that was the case. And I really kind of approached it of like, I just got to give them reasons to think that it's more likely than not that it was intentional and not unintentional.
Sure.
So that's the way that I really came into it. But having said that, I don't think like I'm pretty proud of the game that I did play, and I don't think there was kind of like such fatal errors that it ruined my entire game. And then I used what I had, and to have 45% of the people vote for me, when even if that extra vote wasn't there, it would have been a tie anyway, and Will would have had the extra vote as like the tiebreaker vote anyway. So I see it as a tie in my book, and I'm happy to take that. I'm just happy that 5 people said that I deserve to have won the season. So that was more than enough, like winning for me.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I want to give you, and Francesca we'll talk about too, like you both were amazing at Final Tribal. This is not something that historically Outlast has had is an amazing final tribal. I know if you've watched season 2, I was not very good, and I think season 1 and 3, the finalists there also have their drawbacks. So I think the two of you did a great job. To be clear, it was amazing seeing you argue against each other, and you both made very strong cases for yourselves. So I was just curious to hear you speak about that. Anything else you want to talk about before I move on to Francesca?
I don't think. No, I don't think so. We're gonna like have a brief like. What am I trying to say? Unseen footage or like funny moments that were not on camera.
Yes.
Okay, we'll talk about that later. Okay, good. Then no, I'll reserve for that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
So now we'll move on to Francesca, our season 4 winner. Very exciting to hear you speak about your game here at the end of this long conversation about everyone else's. Francesca, where'd you go? Quickly, 1 second. Some technical difficulties here. Okay. And she's back.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. Right. It's all good. It happens. So I want to start at the beginning of the game here. You were, one of our top 3 performers on reward day in those challenges. And you're someone that's been talked about throughout this roundtable as a very social player. And so on day 1, theoretically, you and Liz said this too, like, you rose to the top of people's lists as a threat coming into this game. Is that something that you're a newer player, so maybe this wasn't even something that you had thought of. Were you aware that this would have put you on the radar for people throughout the game as someone to watch?
Yeah, for sure. It's so funny. This first day, I was just so thrilled that I got to meet so many people. I'm like a textbook extrovert. Like, I just love meeting people and talking to people and learning about everything, like their deepest desires and their secrets. And also I'm used to, like, in my previous job, I used to have a group of students that I mentor. And I'm used to, like, first day at school, we sit all in a circle and we ask these intrusive questions. And I was like, oh my gosh, I get to use this skill here. Did not think that was going to put me in the top of Liz's list, or even less everybody else's. But I genuinely came from the heart. I genuinely just was interested in people. I'm so bad at awkward silences or like pauses. That's something I need to learn, but did not think it was going to put me in the radar. No.
Sure. And was there something on the first day, a challenge or anything that you felt like was right in your wheelhouse, or did you feel challenged by all of it? Like, were you surprised that you were near the top or not?
I was totally surprised. This was a big, like, my first time playing any sort of game. I knew I was good at puzzles, and I knew I was going to be good at the memory stuff. I didn't know I was going to be good at any of the physical stuff. Like, I've never perceived myself as an athlete, and I'm so competitive that I wish I did, but I am just not. So the fact that I was able to do really well in a lot of the physical stuff, that was really exciting.
Great.
Yeah.
Lovely. And now let's move on into the game a little bit. You don't go to tribal council for a long time. Your first tribal council is Will's first tribal council. Very contentious. We've talked a lot about it in this roundtable and in previous ones. So we don't need to go into all the details again, but one of the things that comes out of it is your close relationships with Will and Nick. And I'd love to hear you talk more about the two of them and how those relationships developed, and how you worked with them as strategists in the game.
Yeah, this is so interesting because it's tied to your previous question. So going into the game, from my very minor experience, but mostly from watching Survivor, I knew that I needed a number one. Like, I knew I needed someone to have my back, especially someone who would have a different set of skills, or like someone very different from me, who would be drawn to a different group of people. And actually, the first day, Joseph will tell you, like, when they lined us up in the placements, I was the one who turned to Jojo and Joseph being like, oh, guys, we're top 3. We should like watch each other's backs. We're locked in. And honestly, this is so random, but when I walked into the field, very first minute of the game, I sat next to Joseph and I saw the way that he looked around. And I was like, oh, I want to work with that guy. Like I want to work with the guy who's like watching everybody and also seems a little nervous, but also a little friendly. Like I really liked his vibe. But then he got put in another tribe, and Jojo also got put in another tribe. But then I saw Will come into Luma, and I was like, oh, hell yeah, because he was my third choice as my number 1. Sorry.
Third choice for number 1. I love it.
So, and then, I mean, the iconic chasing to the Petrie at 3 a.m. happened. It was super dark.
I'm not sure I'm familiar with this. Can you?
Oh, I'm so sorry. So I could not sleep most of the nights. I think by the third night I got a couple hours just because I was so exhausted. But the first night I could not sleep at all. And I heard at 3 a.m, Will get up and go to the Petrie. And I wanted to lock in as number 1 as soon as possible. But I thought that if I turned on the lamp and Will was peeing, I didn't want to see that. So I just crept in the dark until I could hear him walking back towards me. And I was like, hey, Will. And he was like, whoa.
Heard the shit out of me.
You be number 1. Sorry, Will, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just saying it scared the hell out of me. And I was like, okay, fine, sure, we'll be up number 1.
Yeah, it was just like, I was like my best plan. I don't know if it was, according to Will's like voting confessional in the final tribal, it worked. But at first I was like, I'm gonna scare the crap out of this kid. But then it worked out. And so that's Will. And I was super glad. Like, I feel like everybody needs a Will. Like, I don't think people understand what it is to have a Will. And I think Joseph has started talking about this with Liz, where there's just something about like our game chemistry that we would look at each other and we knew exactly how we were feeling. We knew we were going to be on the same page, and we knew that no matter what we said, it was going to be safe. And it was going to be, it was, I don't think I'll ever have an experience like playing Outlast, and Will is a big part of that. So that was Will. And then Nick was just like the best guy, and I attract weird people. And I think Nick is weird in the best kind of way. He's just out there, and we just vibed. And I never saw him as an ally, as a number 1, a strategic ally. I think mostly because like I think Will and I just had more of that chemistry of like we knew what kind of game we wanted to play, and Nick was just like going around like I don't know about like collecting bugs, and I was just like, this is great, but I need like someone who was gonna navigate the game separately from me. And I was really sad to hear Nick say that he felt like we thought he was expendable, because I mean it is true in the sense of like that he wasn't my number 1, but I fought tooth and nail to save Nick every chance I had, until I couldn't. So yeah.
Just if I can jump in, like I think surprisingly after I voted for Nick, that was like when I felt like the most in with him from a game perspective. And like when we were going to that fake swap tribe, we like stopped on the trail on the way there, and we were like, we're going to be this like secret trio, and we can pretend that I'm against Nick, but we'll be voting together. And just the fact that Nick forgave me so quickly made me feel really good about him. So it's interesting to think about where things would have gone if he wasn't voted out that early into the merge, because I was definitely trying to keep his name out of like keep the vote off of him. So it was an interesting trio that unfortunately became a duo.
And also, last thing I'll say about the Rede vote specifically, like I have it's so funny because this also ties back to Abby, and we can talk about my relationship with Abby later, but being a Latina means that when you have conflict, at least for me personally, an extroverted Latina, you bring it up and you say it, and you like just say it outright. And as soon as we got back to camp, I wish cameras had shown, like the show has shown how I laid it on thick on Will. Like I was like, I cannot believe you did this to me. Like I was so pissed. I trusted you so much, and I was crying. And it was like I was crying the whole travel cancel. So like, but that moment, like this is the thing. It's like I say it and then I immediately forgive. Peter, my husband, will tell you that too. It's like it's just very easy for me to like voice it and then be like, okay, we're good now. We're gonna work together. So that's how it worked out with me and Will, and we never lied again to each other until, of course, Final Four. But
Right.
And that happened to Abby too. Like after that Nikki, not Nikki vote, that was shown on camera. I was like, you be real, that's what you just did right now. And that bonded us because like that's how we Latinos like to talk each other. Anyways, that's
Cool. The other thing I want to touch on from the early game is your relationship with Nikki, because you say to Ryan that you think that she's scary. So I just would love to hear you say, like, what about Nikki were you scared by?
Yeah, so you're gonna ask me about regrets, and that's my regret number one is telling Ryan that I was scared of Nikki because I feel like that just put us in the wrong foot. Okay, so that part of me that leads me to ask those intrusive questions is just the same part that leads me to kind of try to understand who everybody is. And from the moment Nikki opens her mouth or does something, or even like looks at you, you can tell that she's like scanning you. And she's so brilliant and she's so smart and she notices every single thing. And then she had these random like survival tips about like, I don't know, how to start fire or how to like, I don't know, it was like the deodorant with the charcoal. Like, it's just, I was just mind blown. And I was like, this girl knows what she's doing. She's going to kill us all, like silent assassin style. So it was just my honest like personality read. Yeah, and I regret it because I thought like we all did. Ryan was with me and with Will. But now I know for the future. Could not be so blind the first day.
Sure. So, ultimately going through the merge, your name comes up as a topic of conversation. And, it's interesting how it typically falls back on Abby. Abby's 2 idol plays are kind of rounds when people seem to want to be targeting you or Nick, and are worried about like that. How much like warning about all of that did you have at the time that early in the merge there was some heat on you as a figure in this game?
I did not. Okay, so the very first time where I think Ashley went home, the one that the Will told Nikki that Nikki was the vote.
Yes, that's when Ashley.
Like that, I had no idea. When I was watching the episode, I was like, "Holy shit!" I was so close. Sorry, I was so close to going home. I had no idea, and I think one of the biggest surprises watching the show was Liz. Like Liz had me fooled. Liz, I went out of the game for 6 months. I was saying, I wish I had worked with Liz. She's the best. I love her. So I still love you. But I just went out thinking like, oh man, what an injustice that we didn't get to go to work together. And then I watched back and the whole time she's just pushing for my name. And I was like, what the heck, Liz? So yeah, I did not know that she was with them. And I did not know I was perceived as such a threat. Yeah.
Can I add to that? Because I feel like that round for me was really frustrating because I did tell you like, hey, name is out there. I'm like, I'm trying to protect you. I'm like, trust me, because I already had some. I was gonna use my idol that round, and I wanted to make sure I landed correctly, and I needed to make sure that if I play my idol, that whatever the votes were, that would left for the right votes for Nikki because I needed her. I wanted her out at that point. I'm like, Francesca, your name is out there. They want you out. Trust me. And she's like, what? And I'm like, and she just like not believing me. And I'm like, she's like, you have something? I'm like, no. And it's just, yeah, it was a chaotic round. But I definitely tried to warn her that like people are coming after you. She just didn't really like believe me, I guess, or listen to me. I don't know.
And I think that's also like a testament to my self-perception because like I've never perceived me as a threat. I mean, sure, people like me, but like in this game, surrounded by all these like strategic threats, especially like the castle that was forming at the time. It's like, I know nobody's gonna look at me. Like what? It's for Will. Like Will was in the castle and also out of the castle. So it was just like, if I stick to Will, if anybody ever turns to us, it's gonna be Will because he's like perceived of more as a threat. But I was wrong. But then the second tribal, Will did alert me, and I did have a little bit of heads up. And then after that, I was tense. Like the whole time I thought it was me. I didn't let it show, but I was definitely stressed after that. But the first 3 votes of the merge, I was like, la, 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 la. Like I'm just zooming through the merge. And then that did not happen. So Right.
Moving forward just a little bit to the final 6. you make the Four Threats Alliance with Abi. I mean, this is an alliance that lasts one vote, but I think is helpful for getting you through that one vote, where you sort of see two pairs of you and Will, and Nikki and Abi. And I'm curious how that idea came to you, to go across the aisle and work with Nikki, who's someone that you hadn't really been working with throughout the game, so late in the game to make that alliance.
Yeah, I think what happened was, so I win the immunity, Brandon goes home, and
Yep.
then is that final 7? Yeah, that's final 7, and and then we go to sleep, and that I was just laid awake because I could never sleep, and I was thinking, like, how do I make it to final 2? And the only way to make it to final 2 is to be, like 2, 3, and 4 to be bigger threats than I am.
Right.
5 and 6, I guess. So the Four Threats Alliance was started by final 7. So Amy was not in it. So Amy, Liz, and Joseph were going to be the 3 out of the Four Threats Alliance.
Mhm.
And then Amy ends up going home, which worked out really well for us, or for me and Will and Abby. And I felt like I genuinely was gonna vote Joseph out, if and keep true to the fourth thread.
Mhm.
But then that's the round that is Abby has immunity that round. Yeah. So it just worked out differently.
Sure. I was going to ask about another thing. Oh, so the Four Threats. Sorry, making the Four Threats Alliance. Like, how did you approach Abi and Nikki with this idea? Like, how did that go down?
Well, me and Will
have the
and
idea
Abby,
to put it in practice.
Yeah, me, Will, and Abby already had a relationship. So as soon as we got to camp after Nikki won immunity, I immediately approached her, and mentioned that we all need a path to the end, and I felt like Nikki was kind of stranded out. I did not, again, Liz had me fooled. I did not realize that the Nikki, Liz, and Joseph were so close or having working. I knew Nikki and Joseph had been working together, but I thought Joseph had burned them enough times that she was going to be open to other things, which I was right, because she ended up with us. But yeah, and also Abby independently already liked and had a relationship with Nikki, and Will independently had an opening with Nikki, so it just made sense. And I knew that if Nikki was in our final 4, nobody was gonna vote me out before Nikki. Like, there's no way. Yeah.
Sure. Great. And then, so 5, Nikki gets voted out, and then at 4, you decide to turn on Will. I'd love to hear your rationale for this in your own words. Abi said what he pitched to you, but it's one thing to get pitched something; it's another decision to put pen to parchment and vote out your number one ally. So I'd love to hear you talk through that decision, because it can be very difficult, especially at the end of the game when the person you vote out matters a lot.
Yeah, that was definitely the biggest, the hardest moment emotionally for me. And what happened was Abby comes to me and says, what he just said, you need to vote Will. Joseph is going to take Will to the end. You're not going to win against Will, blah, blah, blah. And then Joseph comes to me and he says, yeah, but Abby's the biggest threat. If he gets to the end, if he wins final immunity, none of us stand a chance, which is true. So I was going back and forth, and I was actually thinking about Abby, but then the key thing that changed my opinion, because I was thinking of voting out Abby because I knew that, actually, I guess I don't know this Will, but I thought that between me and Joseph, Will was going to take me, because Joseph had such a good resume. But then I talked to Joseph, and then Joseph would take me because Will was in this middle of the game, right? Or he wrote the middle really, really well. So I talked to Joseph, and I point blank asked Joseph, okay, Abby goes home, then what happens? What happens if you win final immunity? Are you taking me or are you taking Will? And Joseph hesitated and was well, I don't know, we'll see what happens. And I think eventually you were like, yeah, I could take you.
You put me on
but
the spot, and I was like, I don't know.
no. So I immediately knew that he was gonna take Will, and that was seal his fate. I was like, I can't, because Joseph by that point had won a lot of immunities, or at least like 2, and like had performed really well in all the challenges. So he had the highest chance to winning final 3. And I was like, I need to take Will out if I want to sit next to Joseph. And that was really rough. That was really really rough. They don't show it as well, but I was like crying the whole time too, and I cried when I watched the episode too, and my friends were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, I'm not," because it was tough. Like I said, like Will had been a rock, and like the reason why I got through this game more ways than one. And when I left the game, I told myself and other people like, that's my biggest mistake. I should have just taken Will to the end. And for 6 months, I believed that I should have taken Will to the end, and then like consequences be damned, battle it out as final 2s because we just wanted to sit next to each other. But after watching the episodes, I realized that like that's the move that won me the game. And yeah, it sucks that it had to be that. It sucks that this is the game that we play, but that's the game that we play. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a careful line between like, being faithful to your relationships and doing what's best for you. And I agree. I think this decision to take out Will here is kind of like a maybe all-time Outlast move. So I give you a lot of credit for seeing that and making that decision to do that really hard thing.
And it's also a testament to how good it was how good our relationship was and Francesca's social game that I went out of the game and then like didn't even really care and was ready to get for 2 votes in the end. I think it's a testament to the relationship and also just how objectively good of a move it was in my eyes. Like I couldn't deny it.
Definitely.
And also I feel like keeping Abby that 1 round after having burned him so many times, like gave me a little bit of a boost with him too, because like finally I did not betray him. So I think that was a minor benefit too of voting Will out.
Sure. So you ultimately win final immunity challenge.
Sorry, Peter. I'm being the worst. I thought I was going to be fine. The last thing I'll say about the Will vote is I knew for a fact, and this is not, people were not going to believe me, but I don't care. I knew for a fact that Joseph was going to switch his vote. Because I knew that Joseph was very concerned about his resume compared to Abby's and Will's. I thought, not to me, but I guess now I'm learning that actually I was a bigger threat than Will. But I was like, Joseph is not going to give the fire-making win to either Will or Abby. Like, that's just not going to happen. So that's why I knew the first time I wrote Will's name down, I was already crying because I knew he was going to get voted out no matter what. He was not going to go to fire. So I just wanted to put that out there.
No, great. So moving ahead to final 3, you ultimately win this final immunity challenge. Like, what's the emotion there? Knowing that you are going to be sitting in the final 2. It's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I didn't think it was possible. I mean, honestly, when we walked out in the field and Allison told us it was a tower puzzle, I knew there was a chance. And the reason why I knew it was a chance is because in the show, they showed Michelle coming back from the back of the pack. Everybody's already trying to solve this puzzle, and it takes a while to learn to solve this puzzle. So I knew that no matter, as long as I got through the obstacles, I could make it to the puzzle and still come back because I knew I was good at puzzles. But doing it was another thing entirely. That puzzle is frustrating, and it takes a lot of
that's a very hard puzzle. I've never been able to do it.
Because it would tell you, like, even like the slightest wind, or even like trying to stack your pieces on the only flat surface we had, and then have them knock your actual tower. Like, that puzzle was a headache. I wish I had shown more footage of us struggling so much, or like the count of 45 minutes into this puzzle and still going at it.
I literally gave up. I just
sat there and watched this.
I was like, there's nothing that I can't.
So it was just like, I feel like the biggest emotion came from that gruesome experience of like, it's been 47 minutes, whatever it was. And I finally, and also like the stacking the last level is the most stressful part of it, because like everything is swaying in the wind. And I heard Joseph puzzle fall twice behind me, and I'm like, oh my god, this could be over so soon. So yeah, it was great. I do wish I had a more ceremonious or elegant way of celebrating or kicking, but my inner little child came in and I was like, oh my god. So yeah, it was great.
Great. And then I asked Joseph a similar question, but when you're sitting at the final two, like, what did you think was your winning pitch? Like, what was the story you had to tell in order to get the votes to win?
Yeah, I thought really long and hard about this. Sorry, my computer stopped charging. No, that's fine. And that's another thing I wish they had shown, because like Joseph and I laid in silence for 20 minutes before that final tribal. Not a word was spoken until pizza showed up. But like, I wanted it to be. I knew that everybody knew that I had a good social game. Like that's not something I had to explain.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted people to see me as more than just a social player. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky, and I guess I put him there, but that Will was in the jury, and because I know that he also explained a lot of my game to the jury. But I wanted people to realize that I had been very aggressively playing down my threat level, and that was intentional, and that actually I was the threat that they didn't see coming. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be honest about, like, for example, like when Nikki said that I didn't have a role in the early merge, it's like, yeah, because you get voted out if you have a role in the early merge, like, absolutely. Like, even Joseph was like an entity early merge, and then his name was out there, and then he went down low. So like we both learned to adapt to the fact that we were threats in the early game merge. So I wanted to own my game. I wanted to, of course, highlight the social player, but also like highlight the fact that I was thinking about every single move, and then that whatever they perceived with me and with Will and his game, or Abby and his game, like I had a part in that. I had a big hand in how the game turned out, especially in the final six, starting from the final six on. So.
Yeah, great. Anything else you want to go over before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I mean, I guess we didn't really talk about my relationship with Abby a lot.
Oh yeah. Do you want to go into it?
Yeah, just very quickly, like Abby was a huge surprise, because of course early merge and also throughout the whole merge, we all wanted Abby out. He played 2 correct idols. He was so good. Yeah, I'm so sorry, but Abby and I formed like also such a cool like friendship bond, and this is something that you don't understand unless you're a Latino. But Latinos are brothers, like, and sisters, and like siblings. Like we all, like, when you meet a Latino in the street, you're like, oh my god, you're Latino, hey! And they were like, we just, so Abby and I were like tight from the moment we were finally in the same tribe. And it sucked that I had to lie to him so many times, but it was, again, like the way that I yelled at him after the non-Nikki vote, and I feel like we just were honest with each other. And like even when I was debating final 3, I told him I'll do the best. Was like I wasn't gonna bullshit him, and I think that was a very important relationship as well, because Abby gave me and Will the number we needed to actually make it through a lot of these votes. And I considered it very briefly taking him to final 2, but then he would not stop talking, and that's another footage I wish they had shown. There's this really cool. We're waiting to go to Tribal Council, and I'm just looking at the camera, holding the flag, I'm just like so tired, because Abby's like, and Joseph is like, and then I was like, oh my god, just take me away from these 2 people. Shut up.
So funny.
But yeah, that's all I felt like I was missing. If anybody else wants to go out any moment, happy to talk about it.
Sure. But before we wrap up, I just want to go around one more time and give all of you a chance to reflect on a moment that we didn't see in the episodes, and something that you were proud of from your game. Liz, we'll start with you, and then work our way through.
Wait. So 2 questions, like proud, and then something
Correct.
unseen. I think like post game was like kind of wild experience of like what just happened for 4 days that I was not expecting.
Yeah.
So I would say something I'm proud of that I don't feel like I was proud of until I got to watch it back. I was so anxious at the start of the game. I just didn't want to be the first person out just to like get to experience the game. And I was really proud of like my pre-merge game in particular. I felt like watching it back, I had people to work with, and I was really proud how I was moving on Aho. Something unseen. Sorry if I bring it up to other people a lot, but it's just embarrassing for me. So it's not that unseen, but just to like clarify, I wrote JoJo down. That's my final vote. So I would have liked some like close-up tight footage of me whispering to Nikki, I think I wrote the wrong name. I realized it right as she was reading the votes that like, wait, I wrote JoJo. His name's Joseph. And then I'm pretty sure Nikki's response was like, "Did you write Francesca?" like, what do you mean by wrong name? So yeah, just to clarify, I just messed up the names.
Yeah, we didn't know if you like had a nickname for Joseph or what, so we were like, okay, she voted for Joseph, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah,
it didn't even dawn on us that like you had messed up.
Yeah, I attribute it to my brother is Joseph, and I call him JoJo. So like, let's go with that. Also, that's it. So
I thought it was JoJo being funny. Like JoJo voting for Joseph but calling him JoJo because that was his name.
Everyone turned to JoJo and he was like, "What?" I was like, "Oh my god, that was me." So yeah, I hated that, but also really funny.
Really, really funny. Nikki, how about you?
Yeah, so well, I wish that Brandon and I were actually shown strategizing together because it's such a narrative and it's like, what? To the viewers, they're like, they're close? What? But a specific moment, we were laying in camp before we got to merge, and it's at night, and someone whispers to me, "Hey, Nikki, go follow Will and Nick and find out what they're talking about." So I'm like, okay. So I get up out of the shelter. I'm resting, but whatever. So I go up and I was like, "Hey guys, like, yeah, like Loma strong, green, whatever." And they're saying that too. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I go back. I thought it was JoJo who said this to me. So I see JoJo sitting at the fire and I was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, Will and Nick are pitching green strong, and I am not down for that." So in JoJo's mind, he's like, "Wow, like Nikki's really extending an olive branch. She really trusts me." And then it turns out it was Brandon who asked me to report this information. And I did not go back to Brandon to tell him what happened because I thought it was JoJo. And I used that as leverage when I was trying to get JoJo out. I was like, JoJo is asking me to spy on people. You want him out, right? So I just thought that was one of the really funny moments in the game. Sorry, JoJo. And sorry, Brandon. I didn't give you my information. And then the proudest moment, honestly, was just making it as far as I did. This is the best placement I've ever had in a Survivor game. And I was just really happy, and it's really fun.
Great. Love it. Will, how about you?
I feel like unseen moments, it's cliche, but like all the non-game moments that don't really make the episode, like doing like just messing around, being so weird, like playing camp games and Nick singing SpongeBob songs, like I never laughed. And I feel like that last night especially, we were so delirious, like when everybody kind of woke up at different moments throughout the night, and we were just like dying laughing. It was really fun. And And walking out onto the challenge field the first night with Loma was really cool because it was like one of the few times I've seen the stars that bright. So that was a cool moment. And then something I'm proud of, I think, like similar to Nikki, just kind of, well, I'll say like I think the first immunity challenge win was pretty cool because it was just such a cool challenge, and like it was, you know, an intentional win. I felt like I had a good strategy about it, and it was cool that production was really like happy with that challenge. So I was happy to have won that one. It made me like super paranoid about being a threat, which was so unnecessary. Like my first few episodes of the merge are me being like, I'm like, I got to keep my threat level down. I'm like, I did not worry about that much. But otherwise, similar to Nikki, I think just like generally making it that far, I was so nervous, similar to Liz, and I'm like generally a very anxious person. And something I talked about at my final tribal was that like watching Survivor as a kid, like as a teen, I was like, I wanted to play, but I could never imagine myself actually like socially integrating myself the way you need to play the game. And so this was like such a interesting test for me that I was so nervous for, but it was really cool that it turned out to be like a really strong part of my game was like my ability to integrate myself with people. So yeah, I was really proud of that, just proud of making it far. And like, even though it went the way it did at the end, like I was so proud of Francesca and so proud to play like a role in the winning game. And it was weird. I kind of just like had a feeling that Francesca would win after that, even though I didn't know she'd win the challenge. I didn't know how the votes would go. Obviously it was very competitive final tribal, but I was just like, all right, she's got this.
Cool. I don't know if Abby is still around. Oh, there he is.
I'm here. I'm just doing stuff in the house.
No, all good.
I did the dishes. I got, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All good. We're doing I think we're proud of
I'm
something we didn't see.
Yeah. You know, I think it's something that I feel wasn't shown was this social work that I had to go back to camp and put every time, right? I think I read some of the comments like, oh, his social game is like really bad. And it's like, I didn't stay in the game safe when I didn't have immunity and idol just because, right? Like I put in work with people that obviously paid off because I was able to survive some crucial votes without having any kind of immunity. So I do wish that like that showed a little bit more just so that people could see like, you know, because then everyone was surprised how is he still there, but like I put in the work to still be there. It didn't happen by luck. And then something that I'm proud of, you know, and I will make this very short because I can go on about it for a while, but you know, I moved to this country from Dominican Republic when I was 10 years old. Really had nothing, didn't know the language, didn't know the culture, and really I had to work really hard to get to where I am today to be a very successful professional. Where I've been working since I was 12 years old, packing groceries for tips at a supermarket. So just my life has been one that has required me to be very strong and resilient, never give up, and just kind of like always, you know, have to always fight to have everything that I have. And I just felt like this game was very special because it really tied perfectly with my experience in my life, where I felt like I had to kind of, you know, in a good way, just keep fighting and keep, you know, being strong and resilient to be able to get to that end goal. So it was just really beautiful. And I'm really proud of how the two, my world, my personal life combined one of my favorite things in the world, which is Survivor. And it showed me once again that as long as I put in the work and I'm dedicated, motivated, and have the resilience to continue, that I can literally do anything that I want to do in life, like literally. So I think that was like the big, for me, like revelation, like further, like confirm like the kind of person that I can be if I just keep doing what I'm doing.
Great. I'll hear it. Joseph, how about you?
I think some unseen ones in the Final Four challenge when Alison said that it was a tangram. Like I knew immediately, like I've practiced this puzzle before. I know how to do it. So as long as I get back to the start first, I can literally do the puzzle in 5 seconds, which I did. Mm-hmm. But what wasn't shown was like how gassed I was to the point where like I was just constantly sprinting, to the point where when I was running to get a token because I got a question wrong to go back, I was like dry heaving very vocally in front of everyone of like how like much I was like pushing myself to the limit to try and like get there as fast as possible. And I wish they had also shown how many times my tower in the final 3 collapsed because I probably put that tower together 5 times more times that I needed to, had like my levels not fallen. I've had to redo half a level, which maybe if I didn't knock it down, I might have done it quicker. I don't know. That it still haunts me how many times I accidentally knocked that down. It's something that I'm proud of. I think I'm proud of. I got to close as winning as anyone could possibly do to a season. It was literally 1 vote that was the difference. So, like I said before, I was like, that's a win in my book, and I'm really proud of like the package, I guess if you could call it that, of what I played and how it ended. And even though like I get it why some people in like Survivor, when they do like the live reunion immediately after the vote happens, how abrupt it can be for someone that lost. So I didn't really have much like any time to decompress about what just happened, and I like didn't have any fun at the pizza party afterwards because I was just like, what the fuck just happened? I just lost by a vote. But like after all this time, I've had time to like really think about it and transform like the what the fuck happened to wow, that happened in a good, in a positive light. So I'm proud of that.
That's great to hear. And Francesca?
Okay, something that wasn't shown, and maybe was like shown a little bit, but like my working relationship with Will and like our whole hand in the game, and we called each other Kyle and Camila, and that was very, very true. And we were able to navigate the game together in the way that he was in the majority alliance and I was connected to all the people at the bottom, and we just like, yeah, it's just really cool. And especially like when we would check in and be like, okay, this is what these people are saying, okay, this is what people are saying, okay, this is what's happening. Even if it was just in the walk over to Tribal, I think that it was just pretty impressive duo that we played. And something that I am proud of, I mean, I don't know if it's the most proud of, but Final Tribal, I don't consider myself a talker, and I don't consider myself someone who could answer questions on the fly quickly or well. and it's funny because it all started on the walk back from Abby gets voted out, and then they show this walk back where Joseph tells me that he's a lawyer. And for me, I'm like, okay, well, we're talking about this like super charismatic lawyer, and then me who like English is my second language. I'm just like playing this like social game. I don't know if people are gonna take me seriously, so I'm just gonna go all out and be genuine and just explain my game and be honest and like not care. Like the fact that I knew Joseph was a lawyer made me switch into, oh, I'm just gonna do my best and I'm okay if I don't win because like, you know, it is what it is. I am against Joseph.
Whole game I was like, I'm not gonna tell anyone I'm a lawyer, and then I was like, yeah, it won't matter, I can tell it out, it won't affect the game. Clearly I was wrong. So note to self to anyone, never do that.
Yeah. But I just gave it my all, and like I wasn't ashamed of like my accent or my stupid answers or the fact that I did completely misunderstood a couple of the questions that were directed my way. I was just giving it my all, and that's something that I'll definitely take for the future because it's not who I thought I was, but turns out it's someone I could be. So.
Totally, yeah, it's great to hear. Well, thank you everyone for joining us here. It's really wonderful that all 6 of our final 6 wanted to come back and share their thoughts on this great game that you all played. Truly, Outlast Season 4 was a wild ride from top to bottom, and it is all because of the work that you put into a wonderful weekend in 2025. Of course, Outlast Season 5 will be filming in about 3 weeks now. And we'll be back with episodes and roundtable coverage of that in 2027. So stay tuned. But until then, thank you all for paying attention and being engaged with Outlast Season 4 from top to bottom. We really appreciate all the time it takes to watch and all the effort that our players here put into coming to the game site and paying the game fee and wanting to not eat and not sleep and be in the rain for quite a few days. It means a lot to us. So thank you to our players. Thank you to our production crew, our wonderful host, Allison. And thank you to all of our viewers. See you in Season 5. Thank you.